Welcome to TCP episode 238, the episode where we could be talking about the games that just happened in the Kickoff Clash, but there's drama.
Oh.
And you know what? Because we're a TMZ style show, we're going to talk about the drama instead. Because who really cares about Overwatch at the end of the day? We're all here for the drama. We're all here to find out who left what team and why, who got cut, who's joined what team. The results don't matter. It's just really about who's there. It's kind of like
esports,
Overwatch League Survivor.
It's kind of like, you know, when you get into the kind of lifestyle drama about like who's marrying who and who's cheating on who.
Yeah.
But you don't really care beyond that. Like you just want the instant hit of drama and that's it.
Fucking human code.
And the reason why we're doing this is blame the consumers. The consumers are at fault because they want this. Fuck the consumers. This is their fault. So
he means you guys. You.
If you actually want to hear about Overwatch, you can go down to the description where you'll realize 2 hours later we'll start talking about the Kickoff Clash.
Yep.
But for the first 2 hours, we're just going to be talking about pointless drama that you shouldn't care about, but unfortunately too many people do care about, so we're going to talk about it. And Yiska's also going to add fuel to the fire because he's got a gasoline tank next to him, and he wants to douse some shit. He wants to get into it.
I've been mixing that Agent Orange all morning, man. Like this, it's not good. I let hatred into my heart, but I'm good. I'm good.
You need to follow esports Yoda, man. You know, B1 Renekton and picking Sombra is, you know, fear, and fear leads to the dark side of the force. And you, my friend,
can you do it in the voice?
What do you want me to say?
Either of those two statements you just said.
Okay. I'm trying to like reverse it.
B1 Renekton you shall not. Sombra and control you must not. Picking such leads to fear. Fear leads to the dark side of the force.
He's so good at this. Like,
did you just do that on the spot?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, that's impressive. That is legitimately impressive.
Joe is a mean like voice actor. Like his impressions are nuts. No. Always have been.
The lore behind this is that Kenobi and a group of friends and I were up at like 5 a.m. Goblin hours, and we just thought like esports. I think we were watching Worlds at the time, and we just thought esports Yoda would be the funniest parody account where you take esports jargon and you just reverse it to like make it sound like Yoda would say it. And like, yeah, at the time, like people were like B1ing Renekton, and we were just like,
B1 Renekton, fearful you must be.
That's way too accurate. Like, here's the thing: is like, I wasn't even watching. I was too busy trying to crop my KDG background, and I was too busy focusing on that. And so I wasn't looking at Joe. I was just listening. And it sounded like Joe's got another person in his room that he's just like, oh, you're the Yoda voice guy. We're just going to get you and just put the mic into his face. Or like, yeah, it's just on retainer. Maybe just phoned him up. I don't know. Or he's got a soundboard. He's got the perfect like Yoda.
You've got the AI generated like voice.
Yeah, AI generated voice where like it's AI learning Yoda, but you just typed in the sentence and it just said the thing. But no, it's actually Joe because I saw Joe's voice move. That, or he's a great ventriloquist, but he's the puppet, you know. He is both the puppet and the speaker at the same time.
That would mean there has to be a hand on my ass, and according to Yiska's lore of me, I wouldn't let that fly. I don't know.
That's impossible for him.
Somebody's hand is always up somebody's ass because everyone's a mouthpiece at the end of the day. Everyone's a mouthpiece for something.
Speaking of Toronto,
I'm going to be the mouthpiece of the Toronto Defiant right now. And specifically, here's what they said. Today we say goodbye. Okay, but first of all, before we get into that, episode 238 is brought to you by AVRL vs Dpei, Battlecrab, Refined Bean, Bronze Babuha, Chare. Philadelphia is more of a stage 2 team anyway. Chris R34444. That wasn't even a follow. I just wanted to say that. Cash67, Molshin, Porkchop Sammy, Rexane, Volamel Smooth Nuts, and Your Misery. And also the YouTube members, Ice Ham Magello, William Jesse, Vishmam, Fire Element 6, AK, and Chris R. Again. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read out the tweet. I'm going to go get my McDonald's. You guys are going to talk about it. Right. Today we say goodbye to KDG, the past year, and a better filled with memories of your dedicated and passionate leadership. Thank you for everything, Dongun. We wish you the best luck in all your future endeavors. And then let me get the Adam Adamu tweet as well, because you have to.
Because you just must.
Here we go. And he says, I should have prepped this earlier. I have to do a bit of scrolling down. He says, such an incredibly talented coach. We take every personal decision seriously. It's never easy. It shouldn't be. Thank you for everything, KDG. Mobydik will be stepping in as interim head coach. I have the utmost confidence in the team. Can't wait for mid-season madness. Let's start with that first sentence. Such an incredibly talented coach. But not for the Defiant, apparently. All right, let me get my McDonald's.
I love when teams do that because they feel like they have to, right? Like you feel like you need to PR and like you don't want to disparage anybody. I get it, but like you're not. I wonder who you're fooling. I shouldn't say you're not fooling anybody.
It's the best, dude. It's like he's the most pristine person you've ever known. Perfect genetic code. Actually, the most excellent flex support that one could wish for, but apparently not enough in order to employ them. You know, that's always like.
Not for us.
I mean, okay. What this does say, as we know from the school of professional organizations and presidents of gaming, is that there is a difference in corporate speech about how how this is perceived, right? Or how this is vocalized. Now, does this to you say something egregious happened internally, that if it was to come out, this would reflect badly on the people that have been giving him this laurels and whatnot? Based on that, we can pretty much assume everything has come above board. The most logical conclusion here is that KDG has no longer what's the phrase that you
describe it?
It's like in Germany we have like they are no longer reaching the player, you know, in terms of like their message and their general like cultural impact. And to be fair, very often in sports, at least from my Bundesliga background, it's like you get a new coach in, he has a new sort of approach. And then it actually can like really significantly change how the team plays, right? It has very often like a honeymoon phase based on a new. I struggle to say ideology. It's not an ideology. It's more like a cultural shift, right? So I think this is most likely what happened here, right? Like they looked at the maybe there was something with the internal struggles that we had heard of. Maybe there was also, we have to fairly say, this is the team that will be hosting an offline tournament. They do not want to jeopardize the chance that they won't be there.
Of course,
right?
Holy shit, can you imagine?
So they gotta maximize their chances in order to make it, right? And from a competitive standpoint, I mean, the Defiant didn't have a terrible stage record. Didn't go far in the tournaments, certainly, right? I think based on what this org has communicated and what this org has spent and invested, I think they just have to ask for more. And I think that's a reasonable point. Now, is it a good...
Pin that. Somebody put a pin in that. I have big things to ask you on that, but go ahead.
Right.
Continue. I don't want to interrupt.
Now, I feel like it is an interesting and hard move in the sense that what are you doing now? Is there a better option, right?
Right.
Because like if you had options as to like legitimately keep him and there's no lack of absolute trust where the system's completely broke down, which I don't assume happened here, considering they played another week, then I have to question like, okay, so you made a value estimation and now you're going with Mobydik as the interim head coach. By the way, I think Mobydik in the past had been offered head coach positions, is very much a person described to me as like very smart about the game, but specifically very smart at possible, you know, like people sort of frame the abilities of coaches like in different tiers, and we like to over exaggerate. But like what people have told me is Moby is like a genius at getting complex ideas over to the player, right? He's not necessarily the absolute mastermind in creating these strategies. There you would probably need someone else, but there's always just sometimes, for instance, probably little known fact, I would say for some teams, there's always someone that is just like hyper nerding out about macro and micro strategy, and probably like in their mind is so far away from the player experience that you need the translator between them. Translator as in like game theory translator, not language. So Mobydik excels at that. And arguably, I would say that's a great thing for a head coach to be. I'm not sure about his ability to manage a culture, and especially one where you would have to agree the pressure is on now. Also, where there are a certain difference in like hyper veteran players like Twilight and hyper rookie players like Chorong, for instance. So it's not the most easy team to navigate. It's a big task. I think with Moby, they have a good guy as an interim head coach. There's also nobody else available that could step into that head coach position. What are you going to do? Buy out Moon? You're not going. You know, there's no way. Legitimately,
I'll just Dpei in a second, but yeah.
Like
he just needs a translator. Just needs a translator. It's all right.
Yeah, no, he's not going to do that. So it's hard to find a replacement, and still they went with this. And then again, this probably just speaks to the confidence they have in Moby. At the same time, as an assistant coach, how much impact did you already have? Or is that legitimately now a case where this guy can roll with his own strategy, how he would approach this?
Right.
We have to see. I'm mildly skeptical about this move. I don't specifically know all the circumstances internally that happened there. To my understanding, it's not extraordinarily different from what happens behind closed doors in every team. We just don't get to know it because, let's be honest, some of that should not be in public either.
Agreed.
Arguable if that should have been the case here. So I think we do well in contextualizing it that way. That this is just not that out of the ordinary. And yeah, I don't know, like this situation is a complex one for sure. It's a hard one, but will ultimately just be decided by the results. And this team definitely needs to qualify for its own homestand. It definitely needs to be able to run deeper playoff runs for their own desire, or like what this team was created to do.
Sure.
And I think given the high competitiveness in this region, it's going to be rough. Because like if you run down a bracket of 8 teams and whatnot, even like at the international level, bro, like we now have, like with Atlanta once again being up, you have at least 4 teams that are top tier in NA, I would argue.
Yep.
And then you have like probably 3 teams in Asia that are top tier, at least.
Yep.
And then you got to slot in somewhere, and you still haven't, like proven to be able to beat teams like Houston, teams like Florida, teams like even the Justice on their best days, right? Like you can win one game against them. It's still a struggle, right? Like you're not clearly a league above them. So they have that work cut out for them. And I think also 2 coaches, probably not enough. I hope they get another brain in. And we will have to talk about brains in the Overwatch League regarding the tournament winners eventually, because I think there's a big just uncovered area about who's actually responsible for results. And spoiler alert, it's not just the funny man with the mullet and the mustache.
I mean, he did come out with the heat, I will say. Props to Hunter. To your point, because I did want to follow up on something you said, because I'm not sure maybe it was worded right. But are you saying that you're asking Toronto to give more? Are
No.
you saying that they need more resources?
Okay.
Okay.
I don't think they need more resources.
Mm-hmm.
I think, depending on what the situation is with visa acquisition,
Sure.
maybe they need some moves. I think it's totally fair for a new head coach to say some players don't fit my idea of the game anymore. Therefore, I need new agents, and maybe if some become available or the visa situation clears up or something like this happens, it's totally fair. Where do I see the need for that for the Defiant? Probably in the DPS department. I think one additional DPS player could help.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dude, Leave was available. Leave was available.
Hey, Toronto, he was on our short
And you know
list.
what? It would take you a long ass time to get him, but he might be able to get there just as you go into your own homestand. Maybe.
Maybe. Just barely.
Yeah.
You
They
tell
can't get
me.
anybody, by the way. They can't get anybody anymore, by the
No,
way, because if
it's
they're gonna have to get, they're gonna have to get a Korean player, and it's gonna take a while.
By the way, do we even have a roster construction limit? Like, do we have a deadline by which time rosters need to be built this year? Because this wasn't communicated to us, right? Presumably, no. Presumably, you can just like keep building your roster until playoffs, right?
I would imagine that's the case, just because it is like beta Overwatch 2. Like, it is so new. They want to give teams as much leeway as possible to try and build in or make the most competitive team. Like, they don't want to just cap people.
Oh.
I would guess as much, but yeah, I don't remember anything being communicated personally.
Yeah.
But with Toronto, like, am I off base in saying this is one of the most frustrating teams in the league to like deal with or just like have orbit us? It's very clear that they try to improve. That's the one positive thing I will give this franchise, is they always try to improve and make changes.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, they take the cake in terms of like trying. They try. You got to give them that. However, and you correct the record if I am wrong, right? I'm gonna rattle down the list. I don't have Liquipedia up. I'm just gonna try and do it from memory, right? You start. Do they not open with like Bishop, right? Bishop as head coach, that whole scheme, and it fucking it tanks immediately almost. He's out. They move into a different head coach. Then they go like split Western. Then those coaches go out. Then they go like mixed Korean. That doesn't work. And then they have like Surefour come in, and that doesn't work. I'm sorry. Just trying isn't working anymore. You've made numerous coaching moves. None of it seems to have given you tangible results for the most part.
I have a hot take. Changyun's next destination is the Defiant.
You know,
And,
like that's the problem, that you can even okay, you're not seriously entertaining that, but I could see that, and that sucks.
That's the issue, right? That's the problem. I feel like there is a constant here, and it is someone in decision-making power that is making bad decisions. Yeah. I'm sorry, when you have what we're on our 2017, 2018, fifth year in the Overwatch League, and you have, granted, that's not the same for the Toronto Defiant because they came in later. But I'm sorry,
you ready for the
seen
stat?
teams turn it around. Go ahead, hit me with stats.
Okay. Toronto Defiant is placed third in roster changes. So just the amount of players that they have signed. They are an expansion team, dude. Yep. They didn't switch regions.
One less year. Yep.
They just play, like, they just try to exist as a team in the Overwatch League, making moves in order to get better. And they're just, like, wildly flailing around. And I will say, like, if you look at it, right? Like, they have invested in rookies.
Yep.
Those don't work out. These rookies, then I'm thinking of Ivy. Ivy goes to Fusion, instantly has a great year. Okay. What do we do if Ivy has a great year? Okay. That coach that coached Ivy is probably pretty good. Let's get that guy in. The thing is, like, it never seems to me anymore anyway. And I understand that the feedback loops they have gotten is hard to judge, because, like, on one hand, they went into rookies. Okay, that didn't work out. And then they went into Westerners. That didn't work out. Probably also because the talent wasn't there, or they couldn't reach critical mass, internal struggles, whatnot, right? Then they go into veteran players, but players that are arguably past their prime, not, like at best, they recruited a team, probably not even of the best players, but like the best players lacking of the team that was the best in NA in terms of season record. Mm-hmm. Bought the less impressive pieces, plus the coach, and then are confused when this is a mid-tier team, when you don't have guys like Alarm in there, or Carpe, and also everyone else improved.
Yep.
Right? Like, just by being as good as Season 3 Fusion, if they had just stayed the same, they would have probably been a top 5 team, not top 1 in terms of regular season record. Now you remove the other aspects of Fusion. How could you ever expect anything but mid-tier? That's just what's happening there. Okay, you take that as a baseline. Bro, I'm sorry, Hisu is not a franchise player. He's not good enough.
He's not.
Chorong is a franchise player. I can see that. Problem is, this game is still looks to be very DPS focused, right? Then it's not just about the quality of the players. It's also a certain disjointedness on the server, right? Like where they can't bring it together. Then you have a guy that overperforms his projected abilities in Finale. And then you don't play that guy. Okay, maybe there's a reason that we don't know. Probably a good idea to communicate that, right?
It's KDG. It's definitely KDG.
So, I don't know. It's an optics thing for sure, but it's also like you just look at the numbers, you just look at the placements, and it's not satisfying for a team of that desire to be where they are. And I think what they need is like a lucky break. They just need one player or two that can just break the mold and inspire confidence for more. They need a lucky break with finding a good coach. Theoretically speaking, I feel like Chorong is there. I feel like Mobydik is there. There's potential there. Like, that is the stuff that I would build around.
Potential. They always have potential. The issue that I have is that, like, that's exactly what they're looking for. And I feel like this is, like, not very obvious. But, like, it is a theme throughout this entire franchise is that they're always looking for that lucky break. They're always looking for, like, the next talent, the next piece. You know, it can't be. I refuse to believe that this entire league is based on lucky strikes and that the Dallas Fuel has somehow randomly pulled Rush out of a gacha fucking machine and Shanghai has just ended up with Moon just on the roll of the dice, right? I'm sorry. That's just not the case. Chengdu, like, there are just good coaches out there that you have to compete for. And it doesn't seem like Toronto has the people in charge to actually identify and compete for those people.
I mean, that's also fair.
And
I think
one of them went to the other Canadian team. Whoa!
Yeah, I mean, yes, agreed. In a vacuum, you would want somebody like Dpei. It just,
no.
Obviously.
So what you actually want is a general manager like, for instance, Branda from the Glads, who is always like on the ball, despite like what. Here's the issue: the only reason or the only way that people know of Brenda's existence is because of the Dpei drama. Now, if you talk to anyone in the Overwatch League, they will tell you Brenda does an immaculate job and like has everything under control there, right? Someone like this, I feel like, is a missing piece now. Also, probably someone that the ownership can trust enough to just leave be and just do their job, right? Like, just get out of the locker room.
Yes, unironically.
I'm going to say that I think now that I finished eating, I can finally talk. The move to maybe remove KDG and have Mobydik take the charge could be a break. I mean, it's an opportunity for a break. I'm not saying like it will be the answer. I feel like it's too easy to just hand wave it as well and be like, oh yeah, you know, that's what they needed. without really without really understanding what went on inside. And likely we never will really understand it unless a player wants to just come out and drop all the info, but that's probably not going to happen, right?
Hit the line, boy. Come on.
Well, that's the other thing, right? Logic seemed to be pretty pleased. He's like, finally, KDG's gone. Based on reports and whether you think Halo was accurate or not, Muse basically came out and confirmed at least a couple of things. One of which being that he was having issues with KDG. Probably was the case at Finale. You'd assume that Finale probably was also having some issues there.
Probably.
The whole trade request thing, I think we can just like look past it now. It's like that ends up being a he said she said situation. What we do know is that there were issues in KDG and some players, and that even if you want to read into what Logic says, you can maybe even extend that into last year's players as well. So I don't know if it's an ongoing thing, but I mean,
you know, what?
Adam Adamu comes back from the Toronto Ultraland and just bins KDG in the next day. So I mean, like, what? Something is going down. With, to be fair, I think the benefit of the doubt I'll give Toronto is, you know, they being, or it could be Adam Adamu, could be the rest of the management, could be everybody really, is they're not satisfied with where the team is, and changes need to be made. KDG's been given ample opportunity. I feel like the roster is also capable. It's capable of doing much better than it currently has. And if there's internal issues going inside, and you know, there's been issues where players in KDG can't land on the same page. I mean, I don't know if it's bad enough that one of them has to go, but in this case, and this is a dangerous thing for me to say because I don't want to just make it generalized into one thing, but in some ways it seems like, okay, well, they've picked the players, you know, well, we're going to keep Muse and Finale, and KDG's the problem, and he's going to have to go. It's probably not as simple as I'm simplifying it way more than it probably is, but objectively, you could make that conclusion.
I think you also have to, like, for instance, they picked up KDG in Season 3, right? You know who else picked up their new head coach? Wait, is that right? I'm bullshitting. Actually, Season 4, right?
Okay. Ooh.
Like, just think of how you must feel having missed on Rush.
Sure, yeah.
Or, like, not made the offer. Right?
And I mean, are you saying that they didn't make the offer, or they just, like,
I don't know.
missed?
I'm saying, like...
Could you really compete with Dallas's offer, though? I don't know what the offer is, but...
Exactly, I agree.
And Dallas make good offers. Could you really compete with them?
Yeah, I wouldn't blame anybody for not being able to compete.
I think they could compete this year.
Sure.
In terms of roster.
Yeah, but we're talking about season 4.
Right. So I think, like, in their minds, they went like, okay, Dallas gave Rush a check in order to build a good team. They instantly were top 2.
Right.
If KDG is a coach of the caliber of Rush, we give him some free room to build the roster. We give him some cash.
Okay. And he should.
Please rush us. And I think, like, to miss this much, it's not a satisfying situation. Like, it's totally justified, Jace, just based on the competitive results, to say this is not our coach.
100%. And I don't think anybody would say otherwise. When you look at this team, like, something has to change, because it should be punching well above their weight. They should be like a consistent top 8 performer. Not even a top 8 performer. Like, they should be competing with some of those, like, higher mid-table teams. Like, they should be good, and they're not.
Yeah, they should.
Something has to change. That, like, I don't think anybody's going to argue with that. I think my big conundrum with this team is that they never have any kind of, like, long-term growth plan. It's just like, you try something short, it doesn't work out, you bin it.
What's a long-term growth plan?
Okay, long-term growth plan is Krusty talking to O2 and coaching players personally. A long-term growth plan is Chris Chung from The Shock also, like, having, like, great relationships
going
there.
Straight to O2.
A long-term growth plan is your head coach having ties with, for instance, someone like Padapan, and being able to attract talents like that, even across game borders, right? Like, long-term plans are like someone like Brad making connections with AT and fostering them and giving them, you know, like a a
So
long-term
would it
plan.
be possible to say? Would it be possible to say then that they believe they had that with KDG, but they just backed the wrong horse? Because that can happen.
Yeah, of course.
Maybe
like,
maybe hashtag unlucky. Maybe at the time you look at KDG and you're thinking, okay, seems to have a pretty good record behind him. Maybe this is the guy we can bank on. But you got unlucky.
that's
that be?
possible now that like they've grown into and they have identified that they do need some sustainability over a longer period of time to actually like build a top performing team. And I think that's kind of messaged with some of the orbiting discussion around Cho Rong, where it's like we need a fixture that is going to compete at the highest level, which we've seen what he can do. We've all seen what he can do. He is that player at a role that, you know, I think people have discussions about, but regardless, it is a world-class talent. You have somebody like Twilight. Like there is messaging to me that says, yes, we have identified an issue, but the removal of a coach and my concern coming into the off season, which is a far ways away, mind you, I need more to that to really buy into the idea that like Toronto management has finally got their head on straight. They have a plan internally that isn't necessarily tied to the head coach. Maybe it was, like you're saying, and maybe they got unlucky, and it's some of that's going to happen. But I need to see this over a longer, you know, I need to see that repeatedly messaged.
Somebody like Mobydik, I feel like, is better suited to. Sure. If you're going to put all your eggs in a basket,
yeah,
you would be
Mobydik almost is the complete opposite in terms of there's. It just seems like we keep hearing about players having bad experience with KDG, and yet the opposite is true for Mobydik, where you only hear players having good experiences with Mobydik.
That
right?
could be the tie-in guy for sure. That could, you know, build these connections. In order to be a top team in 2022, you need reasons for top players to join your organization that doesn't come with like an increase in salary.
It ain't just about the money.
It's not about just like the extra like ability for you. You could outpay everyone, and to a degree, Toronto Defiant did this offseason. But you also like the hook that gets the player in isn't just the thing that gets him through the door and now he performs well. The hook is also the magic wand that makes this player perform. Like the belief in what Krusty can do is what makes the magic happen. The belief in the shock system around their general manager, the connections to talent esports that some others have had, the ability for Brad to attract talent, give them a long-term vision, like build them or get them into the culture. And yes, there's volatility there for sure, but there's a system now. There's a talent pipeline that keeps going on. Like as far as I can tell, next year's Sugar Free is going to be 18.
You know, is anyone he's going?
Is there any other place where they could end up? If anything, their culture is so radiating. Bro, the talent that ATL swatted off joining them this offseason could form you a top 5 Overwatch League team. That's how good they are in terms of creating a culture that people want to play for, right? Like, I know you guys think like it must be the worst place because everyone is toxic and oh my god, they're throwing scrims and, you know, like I understand that this is no, people want to play for this team because it's a satisfying and fun environment for top players to be there, right?
And they get results. They do get results.
And they do get
and
results.
They do that.
That's true.
So you need something like this. You need a culture that attracts talent. And maybe Mobydik is the answer, but nobody else has been able to pay themselves into the upper echelon just doing that. And to a degree, if anything, and maybe that's unfair, but if anything, or if any team ever got closest to that being the case, it's probably the Gladiators.
And even then, we've heard
last year.
You know, when you talk about Gladiators, I remember Dpei having this conversation at some point, and he mentioned that it's like it's not even as easy as just having the budget and just having money to throw at players because, you know, even he said for the Gladiators it was hard to attract certain players because, you know, money wasn't always the biggest factor there. You could pay better than another team, but there were other factors that drew an attractive player towards another team instead of his team.
Let me actually retract
Something
that.
he's got a record.
Because the biggest magic trick in Overwatch history, probably from a Western standpoint, is getting Kevster off this continent. That was impossible for everyone. Like, it was like really hard to make Kevster sign a contract and then have him also travel over. The fact that they got the confidence to that point where Kevster is now like in front of cameras, giving interviews, being probably
content.
top 5 player in the Overwatch League right now, doing content and everything, that speaks to the ability of the Gladiators to do it as well. And I also don't want to discredit Dpei's like role in this. Definitely there's something culturally relevant there. But at the same time, I will say, sure, like Gladiators had one of the top budgets, always had.
Yeah,
okay,
it sounds like it's something you need, right? Like you do need resources, but it is grown outside.
So right now, Toronto have resources. Maybe not. I don't know if they have as much as Dallas or Glads, but they at least can compete for top players salary wise.
Yeah.
It just seems like maybe other factors are not as good. So yeah, interesting. So Defiant, I don't know if they can make too many roster improvements for the time being.
No.
Because this is the problem with having a full Korean roster at this stage in NA, is the logistics of getting them over is always going to cause problems. Otherwise, New York would have done more by now. So it's rough. They have to kind of work with what they got, unless there's another NA team willing to trade a Korean player to them.
The thing is, in order to sort of like really quickly summarize what the problem with Toronto is like, they are a team that seems to be looking at best practices in the environment, but then not understand how that works. So one of the bigger, one of the idea or things that I just thought about was, I think they purposely stayed longer in Korea. Now, any other season, this would have helped your preparation, right? Because you get the better scrims. I'm sorry, APAC, historically, better region.
Sure.
This is the one season where that wasn't the case. And if you thought through the process of how Overwatch 2 was going to work, who was going to get Overwatch 2, why the contender scene can't help you there, how dire the scrim situation would have been, you should have gotten your team to North America ASAP, probably before the alpha even drops, in order for them to acclimate, get rid of their jet lag, and then sprint into scrims. And these little adaptations, like them trying to find best practices, but not having anyone like in charge that really like just like looks in the distance what's coming up, what changes are there, but just trying to copy sort of these best practices from other teams while everyone else is evolving. I think if they can get that figured out, that's a team that's going to be scary going forward.
Here's my counter argument for the scrims in Asia thing. Because all the NA-based Korean teams were in APAC, scrim quality was really high in the preseason. Because they all played each other.
Yeah, but I feel like they were there longer, weren't they not? Like, I think...
I don't know about that. I think New York were the last team. I think New York were the slowest team to get over.
New York feels like
issues.
Yeah.
I knew they had issues as well.
Yeah.
But like New York, Toronto, Dallas were all in Korea.
I feel Dallas
Washington was in Korea
earlier.
Right? I can't remember the timelines. I to be honest, to me, it felt like they all kind of upped and left pretty. Pretty much at the same time.
I was told they purposely went as late as possible. If that's not the case,
also, I know that New York was the last team. I'm 90% sure New York was the last team.
But that's not a decision that was out of necessity.
Yeah, they didn't want to do that. I knew that Boston was scrimming Korea as well. So I don't know. People keep this fucking story that needs to be squashed. People are like, oh yeah, well, Boston Uprising were the slowest of the scrims. They didn't start scrims till the latest. Like, that's only for NA. They'd been scrimming in Korea for fucking a while before that, guys. Yeah. Like, Boston had been scrimming for a while. Just this end this bullshit story of Boston being late to scrims. No, they were not. They were scrimming in Korea the whole time. So there was actually, you had a bunch of them. You had all the APAC teams and all the NA-based Korean majority teams. Also in APAC, so scrim quality in Alpha was really high for that reason. In Asia, I would say much higher than in the West, because you had fucking Dallas being there is just gigantic for scrim quality, right? But to end the Toronto discussion now, as I think we've definitely reached the end of the track on this one. I got a lot of faith in Mobydik. I don't know if they're going to get another coach. Maybe they'll get another coach, but at this stage, I wouldn't be surprised if Mobydik is just going to be going from interim head coach just to head coach. He is just going to be the head coach.
Yeah.
So, and it's time. It's time for that to happen, because I think for certain coaches, you know, the pathway between assistant and head coach, it's got to happen. It's bound to happen. I mean, Face on Gladiators had been looking for a head coach for a while as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He was looking for a head coach position this year, and if he didn't get on the Gladiators, he might not have been on the Gladiators. Still, he might have gone elsewhere. But he got obviously the whole Dpei thing happened. Face got promoted, and so he got what he wanted because he became the head coach of any team, just of a team, because that's what he wanted. And I'd say off the back of that, some pretty fucking insane success. You know, first season, first stage as head coach, boom, instant tournament win. Love to see it.
Yeah.
But moving on from that, let's talk about Dpei, because he got announced. Let's talk about the other Canadian team and the ex LA Gladiators coach, because we've been kind of dipping his name in and out of conversation for a while. He has recently joined the Vancouver Titans. He's been rumored as well, because Halo kind of dropped that rumor. And we can kind of add in the entirety of the Vancouver discussion with it, because this is also a staff members being dropped plus new guy coming in, although the Toronto is more like KDG dropped, but Mobydik is still there and he's going to take over. Yeah. Here it is Flubby and Pew gone. Seicoe, the player, gone. Dpei comes in now as the new head coach. Justin, GM, still there.
I feel like this is a move out of necessity, but also a smart move. I'm glad to see Dpei back in the league. As much as I question his tenure on the Gladiators and wondering if, you know, that was going to lead to long-term success, I still put a lot of stock into him as a coach, as a system creator, as somebody, you know, has an eye for talent and has historically been fairly creative in developing strategies. No, not just the Great Bamboozle. Plenty of other, you know, interesting ways that he views the game and messages that to his players. I think that this is going to work out, as much as whatever has happened with this franchise, as much as, you know, I want to give shit to Toronto. The Titans also haven't really done anything, right? Like, they are completely, you know, you can get out the woeful stamp, like get on the head. Wins? Yeah,
the Flubby Titans had 6 total wins, something like that.
3 against Boston.
Yeah.
Was it 3? I thought it was more. So 4, at least maybe? 3 against Boston as well.
Yeah, like that can't happen. Like, it should have been probably cleaned up a while ago. But now we have Dpei in charge with a team that on paper needs some improvement, that has ability to improve, right? This is mostly Western core that can bring people in. I half expect them to. And I think this is the team that I would, granted, you're starting from a very low position. It should be more improved, right? I suspect that Dpei coming in, you're going to see some growth. It is going to be capped, but like, this is a team that should make some movement based on the moves that they've done.
I'll draw a little bit more of a gloomy picture. I think this season's almost over for them, man.
You think so?
Ooh.
Over?
Yeah.
We're only a quarter of the. We're
but unfortunately, the system that we've chosen makes it so that it's very hard for a team to have any competitive success going forward, because their way into Kickoff Clash is already like
difficult.
I think Shock would have to go 0-6.
Right, I get that.
Someone figured it out on Reddit, right? So they're not going to be in the Kickoff Clash. Sorry, in a mid-season invitational. okay, you're losing out on another bonus point. Your success now becomes like winning maybe stage 3 or that's it. You're unlikely to even make it into Countdown Cup.
Countdown Cup doesn't have a tournament for what it's
Right,
worth.
but like into the play-ins, I think that's based on their record. It's hard, especially if you can't get the bonus points from the mid-season tournament.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
I mean, you could theoretically outperform that. So, in order to make it into the CC play-ins, Eric says 7th to 10th. So you need to be better than 3 teams in the Overwatch League in NA. So they're not going to be better.
That's possible.
No.
That's pretty
You don't
doable,
think
I
so?
think.
I feel like
pretty
that's
They
doable.
need to
very
be
doable.
considerably better, considering everyone else already has a head start on them, right?
Sure, without a doubt. Right? Like it is tough, but I think it's
Let's be clear.
doable.
London 3 points, Boston 2 points, New York 1 point, Paris and Vancouver 0 points.
Those are the teams you're basically.
I don't think with 3 more stages to go, I think it is more than possible for Vancouver to overtake 3 teams.
But these 3
some
teams
major shit happens.
could, for instance, like London could go into mid-season invitational, get a bonus point based on that.
Sure.
Uprising still possible that they get in there. NYXL, I think, you can be better than them. I think you can be better than Eternal. I don't see the next team. I think there's also something to be said about rapid improvements in such a situation is unlikely. They're still lacking a second tank.
Agreed.
I don't know, dude. This is real rough. Unless the next meta, they just hit a lucky one. They're on their ass, and this needs to be a 2-year project.
And I still would mark that as a success, and maybe that's where we define that a little bit differently, where it's like, it is a long shot to see them in play-ins and even performing well in play-ins this season. It's tough, and it's not really at the fault of the players so much as the circumstance and the logistics of like this team entirely. But they are, to me, again, to harken back to the Toronto discussion, this feels like a long-term plan, right? You have taken somebody who has a vast amount of experience building, developing, creating systems in the Overwatch League, and it is a band-aid fix for this season, but this feels like a play for the next. You have some pieces here that I'm like, ooh, okay, we have Shockwave. Hasn't necessarily had a great season thus far, but a great building piece. Budget-wise, it would be an interesting discussion to have. But I see this being successful over the long run, not necessarily immediately so, even though I do think that we will see some immediate growth, within, a stage or 2.
What do their next games look like? Let's see. So Eric brought it up. Let me move this. So
Gladiators straight away.
I mean, obviously
Gladiators, Houston Outlaws, Atlanta Reign, Dallas Fuel, Shock, Justice, 0 points.
Now the big question is, that is a pretty tough schedule. I think they can get one versus Washington, maybe, but do they have the roster quality to compete? Because my biggest worry for Dpei is, let's say that he does everything right from his perspective. Is the roster quality of the team high enough? And maybe, because I really want to give them some benefit of the doubt, because I think the roster quality isn't atrocious. It's actually reasonable. Now, it is very front-loaded, because most of that is in your DPS line, of which now you've lost a member, but you did also gain a member. The craziest thing about Vancouver is, contrary to the fans' belief, this is actually not a broke team. This is a team that has actually been able to afford people. For example, they could afford Dpei. They could afford Dpei just to start with. I mean, that alone should tell you a lot about where the Titans stand as far as financials goes. They are not the most broke team in the league, and yet they are definitely on the bottom. Next to a team that is actually kind of broke.
Yeah.
So at this point, it's like, at most, I'm looking at a stage where maybe they get 2 points. Yeah. Houston seems beatable. Justice seems beatable. The rest of it could be pretty fucking hard, because you are playing against the literal top placing teams.
Correct.
Coming out of Kickoff Clash. Now, that being said, the meta could change. In fact, the meta will change. The meta is going to change, and things could improve for the team. You want to play double hit scan. because you have Shockwave Aspire. I don't know. Sojin could be a really good hero for one of those guys in terms of sniping. There are definitely opportunities for Vancouver to climb up. Now, I think the real question ends up being, what is a reasonable measurement of success for the Titans moving forward? Because as much as we're talking about like, oh, they're not going to make the mid-season madness, I don't even know if that's a
don't think you have to.
reliable or a fair
Yeah.
metric of success just yet. Because when you are at rock bottom, anything right now is great. Like a win
Mhm.
anywhere, just a single fucking win anywhere is already a major improvement. So is that where we start? Do we just start with one win? Starting with two wins?
Yeah.
Or are we going with something like, let's just see if they can break out of the bottom three by the end of the year so they can make it into play-ins? Would that be a reasonable goal for
I
the
think
team?
that would
Just
be
just to make the plans. Nothing
I
further,
think-
just simply make plans.
I think that would be a good floor, let's say, right? Like if that's like first like to do on the goal list, I think that would be fantastic for a team that started abysmal, had to, be agile, signed Dpei, and they can squeak in play-ins with like a fairly decent performance. They don't just completely get rolled over. It's competitive most of the way through, but just the calibers are different. You move into next season. I think that's a better start than they've had in a long time. Right, since literally their franchise debut, where they signed some of the best players to ever have fucking graced the game and fumble the bag. Right, like that's the start. That's the start of things for the future for the Vancouver Titans. I think
controversial.
they can
I don't.
do that.
Controversial. I don't think they fumbled that too hard. I think people don't understand the internal workings of what went down. This is not going to turn into a
Sure.
what happened on the Runaway Titans
No.
story, because we would need Harsh to come in for that. But yeah, I mean, I think people simplify that way too much
Agreed.
without considering both sides of that story. But that's not what we're here to talk about. I'm just saying, like,
There's more to the story. I agree.
there's definitely more to that story than simply Titans fumbled. Everyone assumes Titans just like, whoop, what happened? I just dropped the Titans. I just dropped the Runaway team. It's a little bit more complicated, guys, but we're not going to get into it today. So to me, a reasonable expectation for this team. Expectation is not even the right word. A reasonable goal for the team is simply to be 10th place in North America. I think that's fine. I think if Dpei achieves that, that's okay. Sadly, it's not going to look good for Dpei in the mid-season madness qualifiers.
Yeah.
There's those 6 teams that they're playing against. 4 of them do not seem beatable.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a long shot.
You could put Rush on this team. I don't know that they're winning those 4 games versus those 4 top teams. Unless Atlanta fuck around. But then again, Atlanta would never lose to Vancouver. I think Atlanta, even if they fuck around, they would never, they would never
Tough.
jeopardize themselves to lose to Vancouver. I think their pride would dictate that they have to destroy Vancouver in that matchup. So I don't even think that's necessarily winnable.
Yeah.
Which only leaves Houston and what's the other team again? Houston and Washington. Both
this stage.
in their own right can be pretty scary teams in the right time. So, I mean, you don't even have to get the version of Washington that played up against the Shock. You can get just even a normal version of Washington. I think is strong enough to beat Vancouver. Same deal with Houston, to be honest. So you could be looking at a 0-6 stage again. It could be 0-12 after 2 stages, legitimately for this team.
Yeah,
which is sad, but
then it comes down to like a form argument or like an overarching like identity. Like have they identified something? Are they going the London school of like small budget, Overwatch, where they're trying to maximize the pieces that they do have, even though, like you said, they do seem to have some kind of budget. So I don't know that maybe even they need to do that, but I selfishly think that would be kind of interesting. I think there are ways. I think Dpei has a very unique skill set. Again, referencing the creativity to be able to try and give this team a punching chance at, like you said, taking maps, maybe games off of Justice or Houston.
This team is one good Ryan player away from being a reasonably good Ryan team.
Yeah.
Because they got the pieces there. They got Masa.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. They got Masa. So that's all you need. No, you got the Mirror May as well. No, it's perfectly doable. They're one good Ryan play away from being like, boom, this team
Somebody
can now,
phone
like,
up Gig.
Now this team can lean into the London
Yeah.
And I guess
style
also
a little bit
Mickey,
more.
right?
What?
Mikey.
Mikey.
Mikey. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't never rated him.
Okay.
Barely remember him.
You want me to juice this conversation a little?
Go ahead.
A bunch
Juice
of
away.
teams are scrimming currently for main tanks, and Mikey is a name that I frequently hear being brought up. Also,
Who's Mikey?
I think he was
Am I
formerly
stupid?
of
Who's
Boston.
Boston Up, yeah, from Boston Uprising. Now, collegiate player. Was it Marvel?
Hey guys, speaking of Marvel is free on the market.
True.
I don't know if he's a Ryan player. Okay, I'm just spitballing. I'm not saying that's
No, I
exactly
know,
what. I'm not saying that's the answer to all their problems. I also think London's one tricking is a little bit one note. Like you can definitely fail on that as well. So I don't know exactly copying them either.
No, but it's the idea
rather than saying they're one Ryan player away from being a good team, I think more accurately what I should have said is they're one good meta shift away from being a better team as well.
Mhm.
Because you could just get a good off tank meta for false and hope that works for you.
Yep.
All right. How about the rest of this?
Real quick. Eric actually brought up Cloudy, and I remember a tweet from Cloudy that his visa situation is not the worst. So, pre-accessing connection.
You are one LH Cloudy away from being a good team.
I'm not mad at that. That's not a bad move. Again, a Rhine specialist. I'd be interested to see what that looks like
Thing
coming
is,
into
do
this
you
patch,
want
but...
specialists? Do you want that?
No, but that's better than what you got.
You're not looking for a specialist. You're looking for someone that covers the main tank hero pool. That's it.
Correct. And I think Cloudy does that reasonably well.
Anyway, anything else for the Toronto Defiant? So I think we're all in the position where Flubby and Pew probably outstayed their welcome in terms of where those results have been. And that's especially, I think people would maybe make the excuse previously be like, oh, Vancouver, they're a cheap team, Flubby and Pew's hands are tied. But I think we can also set the stage to say that that's not entirely true when you have the capability to sign players like Shockwave and Aspire and Masa. We know that's not entirely true. Yeah. And then you can obviously sign Dpei as a coach. It's like Vancouver are not a broke team. So, I think we can definitely land in the position that Flubby and Pew probably outstay their welcome on that team, considering the results over a long period of time.
This season specifically to an egregious degree.
I mean, Vancouver should have probably parted ways with Flubby and Pew in the offseason and got a new coach in straight away anyway.
Yes.
Yep.
But, yeah. In that case, Dpei does have to come in and sort of clean up a little bit and has to work with what Flubby and Pew left him with in some ways, or what Justin left him with. So here we are. Best of luck, but it's going to be probably still pretty tough for Dpei. So I think if they do make top 10 by the end of the year, that'll be pretty damn good for the team. That'll already be the start of a pretty big turnaround for the franchise, considering what happened last year. But what I do appreciate is that the franchise is making efforts to change the direction of the team, and that they actually do care about results, because that's what I care about. I care about teams that care about results, and I don't want to see teams floundering and fucking around.
Yeah.
What is the next topic of drama? Paris. Ooh. Here we go.
One.
Paris, not out of the crosshairs again. Although, to be honest, I don't know. Is this like what is this? This is kind of interesting, but I don't. This is not. Is this negative? I don't see this as potentially negative. I just think like
depends on if you're French.
It is what it is. But my first question, just in case either of you know more, because I know very limited about this topic, is McCourt still the ownership group for this team, even though they have this Vegas thing going on? So for those that don't know, there was a rumor and then an official announcement that the Paris Eternal with Paris Legion, which is their Call of Duty team, will be shifting over to Las Vegas for the 2023 season. After there were a bunch of trademark rumors about the Eternal trademark not being, renewed, and then a new Vegas Eternal trademark being trademarked by this or organization. So, but it is still McCourt, right? Drew McCourt
Yes.
I would
ownership
imagine
group.
so.
I mean, we
So
haven't heard anything to the contrary. I think for the CDL team, there were reports that this was looked to be sold. I think it's fair to think that this is also true for the Eternal. That said, you know what the most interesting thing for me was? That they're already making plans for 2023 and they're going to be here. Like, I was like, oh,
That's a good thing.
really?
We love that.
Damn.
That's
unfortunately, 2023 confirmed. Let's go. So, I mean, what do we make of this? Because I think Joe's right. This is probably not bad news unless you are French or European.
Yeah.
Yes, you're European, so you can speak to the Europe side. But to me, surely this is maybe a good thing, I have to imagine. Again, unless you're European, because I don't know. Because I'm not American or European. So, Joe, you're American. You can
Yeah.
tell me about Las Vegas and its capability to be a franchise location, being that Raiders have moved there.
True. I
And-
mean, I would imagine there's a little bit more. I don't even know if that's true, right? I don't know if there is any kind
Oh,
of
it is
like.
true that Raiders went there. Raiders did
Yes,
go there.
it is. That is true. That is a fact. That's factual based. But I'm looking at it more like, is there more of an interest in esports? I don't know if that's true. Maybe that's true for Overwatch. Maybe that's true in other games in France and Paris.
Is there a demand, or are they trying to create a demand?
Maybe it's that. It's difficult to kind of wrap my head around because, I mean, yes, there's, I think, an esports arena there. There's obviously multiple events there. It's open in terms of COVID protocol, so they could do some kind of activation there. I like that. That's a possibility. But for me, this isn't necessarily about Vegas in particular, more so that it's a possibility that the league maybe now is giving franchises. We've heard reports that, you know, the payment has either been frozen or maybe is possibly even being forgiven in terms of franchise slot payments.
It's definitely just been frozen. It's definitely just frozen.
Okay.
Right?
So like
they haven't wiped that clean. It's just frozen.
I would imagine not. And now you're seeing more flexibility, assumedly so, from the league side in terms of where these franchises are tied to. I think that it is important to the league to have a franchise tie, like a city-based like identity. But I don't know that it's a huge deal. Again, if you're French, maybe that's not necessarily fair to say. But I don't know.
Does
like the
Contact Gaming? Does Contact Gaming have any roots in Vegas?
Vegas?
You guys know Contact Gaming? Contact Gaming is I said Drew McCourt, but technically we should be talking about Contact Gaming because that's actually the organization that, like how MV has both. Well, they had Empire, but now they have Optic and Dallas Fuel and MV. Contact Gaming is the parent organization of the Paris Eternal, Paris Legion, and also
ever.
And also they play in Counter-Strike as well under Contact Gaming. So, yeah, I'll be straight. They haven't done the best marketing in the world. And also their local looks like Space Station Gaming, so they have to work on that.
Oh, lovely. But
Contact Gaming is Drew McCourt's overarching organization. So we'll just talk about it from the aspect of Contact Gaming. I don't believe, from what I can gather from my very limited amount of Googling, they don't exactly have huge roots in Vegas, if at all. But I'm also going to be straight about this as well. Like, when you have an American owner like this, how much roots do they really have in France or Europe anyway?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like, this is not like a French owner.
No.
Like, it's almost like the C9 Jack story. We're like, yeah, okay, they're the London Spitfire, but the story has gone.
Yeah.
That Jack's priority was to get an LA team, but he couldn't get one, so he settled for a London spot.
Didn't he?
And
doesn't the McCourt family have either own or have ownership in Olympique Marseille? Wasn't it something like that?
Couldn't tell you.
Eric on the case?
Don't know, didn't care, won't ask. L+ ratio. How about that, bitch?
That's not the podcast for that. We're looking at things with granularity here. Or I'm going to drag you. Yes,
But I
McCourt.
do think it's
yeah.
But I do think it's very sad for France, obviously.
Yeah.
However, in Europe generally, because there's only 2 European teams. But here's the problem. Here's the other problem that we have to come back to with the league is that
Mhm.
when we look at city-based franchises, when we look at the fact that we don't currently have longevity in land-based competition and we're doing mainly online,
Mhm.
it doesn't make any sense to have European teams
Yeah.
right now
It's more of a hassle.
because they have to be based in NA anyway.
Yeah.
Because they're playing in NA.
Yep.
Because you can't have a European league because there's only 2 teams.
Yeah.
And you can't get more teams right now. Well, you could, but no one's buying. So you're not going to get more teams right now.
No.
Which means, I mean, shit, you don't even have buyers for the teams that want to sell, let alone new people coming in for new franchises.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
you're not going to get new teams. Teams based in Europe you can't do anything there. You can't even be based in Europe. So you might as well have an NA team. Like, it actually makes so much sense just to move to Vegas. It fucking blows for Europe, but
Yeah.
Europe ends up being the most underserved major region in Overwatch, and it is fucking sad. But it ends up being a combination of city-based franchises in a COVID era coming together to form one big clusterfuck of unlucky for Europe.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unlucky, and even though I will say, I feel like SEA would also have liked to have a word with that. But yeah, generally speaking, Southeast Asian region.
They never had a franchise. They never had a franchise.
No, sure, but they are still kind of underserved.
Underserved, yeah.
Do they even have
Yeah, so,
contenders
I mean,
next year?
Look, if we want to get into the argument of underserved, then we can also talk about South America. We can also talk about Antarctica.
Sure.
We could also talk about literally Alaska as well. I don't know. Like,
Yeah,
yes,
it's
absolutely.
about interest, right?
But for a reason, so I'm not trying to underplay how underserved. It's not the Olympics of underserving.
Yeah.
But the reason I bring up Europe is because they did have 2 franchises.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And Europe has been a destination where good Overwatch players have come from in the past.
Yes.
That's slowed down a lot in recent years.
Yeah.
But, previously, I would have easily have said there were way more good Overwatch League players coming out of Europe than NA.
Yeah.
Easily.
Sure.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Whereas now, I don't know if that's true anymore. That's because of how underserved Europe's been.
Yeah.
And that's even with contenders. That's even with them being one of the main contenders regions.
Yeah.
So, absolutely, yeah. Southeast Asia, South America have had it worst. Have had it worse, but I'm talking about it from a perspective of like where the franchises are and what's going on in those regions and other games where LEC is a super competitive region in League of Legends, and Europe has the best Counter-Strike players and probably the best Valorant players as well, right? So in that regard, Europe is fucking hella underserved.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, good. It's not like maybe this is scary to some people. I think this is like a benefit to a lot of teams because I can't imagine this is the only team that's like had this on their table, right? Like an owner has seen these papers and gone, do I want to move? And I wouldn't put it past some of these other teams. Maybe it's not a trademark thing. Maybe it is. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if there were more teams interested or already in the process of finalizing that movement. That's not shocking to me. Of course, you have, the obvious one in the Valiant. Why the fuck are they still Los Angeles? It's obvious that like they've jumped the shark. They need a rebrand, they need a redesign, all that good stuff. That makes sense. But then you do look, Yiska brings up a good point. You look at London, it's like they didn't want to be here. I don't know why they're here, but that's what C9 ended up with. Are they going next year? I don't know.
All of these teams that most of them are based in NA, but when you look at the owners of the teams that are not based in NA, only, who is it? It would be Shanghai, Guangzhou, Hangzhou, and Chengdu are the only actual non-NA ownership groups. Because if you go back in time, let's get in the time machine. Seoul Dynasty, that's Gen G, which used to be KSV, which is Kevin Silicon Valley, Kevin Chow's Silicon Valley. That was the company is an American, is an American owner. And Philadelphia Fusion, that's Comcast, that's Tucker, that's an American owner.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they're in Korea right now, whatever the whole T1 thing, it is what it is. Yeah, I mean London, C9, Paris, Contact Gaming, Drew McCourt, like they're actually all American owners except for the 4 Chinese teams.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean we didn't even really have European ownership to start with.
No,
didn't we have that? It didn't even exist.
I mean, we
And
could
the
have
Korean
had.
teams.
I remember a particular drama situation where Fnatic wasn't particularly happy with how they were.
Yeah, Sam Matthews, he wanted the London spot. He actually wanted it.
Yep.
They gave it to Jack. And Fnatic are actually based in Europe.
Correct.
Now, granted, I think Sam Matthews probably dodged a bullet, and he believes he dodged a bullet, and he's probably right on that. But yeah, he was keen, and I think they would have been good owners as well. They would have been really good owners. But
yeah.
Yep.
So
it's looking tough for Europe. I think they need a revisioning.
There's nothing that can be done from an Overwatch League level until shit is on the up and up, and there's interest in franchising or something changes within the franchising itself, where teams can be part of it. For now, the best thing that can happen for Europe is not this year, but next year, Contenders and Tier 2 pops the fuck off for them, and it gives them a reason to compete and want to compete, and for some orgs to rejoin in Europe to compete, and for that to be a valid pathway into the Overwatch League or something. I don't know. But if Contenders doesn't pop off in Europe next year, yeah, that region's fucked. That region is totally fucked.
Honestly, like in my mind, and that's based on no information, but I'm like, okay, what if the Valiant actually like relocate to China? Then an A slot is theoretically vacant, which then Spitfire could take up because they are in LA anyway. They have their headquarters in LA. They
makes sense, yeah.
No.
Right around
Paris are already going to Vegas. Paris are already going to Vegas. In my mind, they take Valiant's in a spot anyway.
I don't think they
doesn't have to be an LA spot.
I mean, I don't think
like in terms of being a North American team is what I'm talking about.
Right, but
not necessarily out of Los Angeles, but
I think but I think they don't have these hard slots anymore. I think it's just a problem of. I mean, to be fair, calling it the Los Angeles Spitfire is probably also not going to happen just because like Spitfire is.
Why do we need 2 LA teams? We don't need 2 LA teams. Can I be real? We do not need 2 LA teams.
The thing is, like, they have tons of real estate in LA. They have the headquarters there. Why would C9 ever be in any other city?
I don't think C9 want to invest more in Overwatch League. I'll be straight. I don't think Jack wants to put any more money in.
Maybe that would save them money. I'm not sure.
Fuck, maybe. I don't know. What would save them money is being based in LA and using the facilities of C9.
Yeah.
And using NA-based players so they don't have to do visa shit. And whatever the cost of rebranding is, and just call the LA Spitfire. I don't fucking know. Maybe. But
is it what's the American fighter jet?
Or they can just do all of that and still be called the London Spitfire. I don't know.
Oh no.
I'm drawing a blank. I should know this. I played so much Battlefield 1942. Jesus.
What do you think? What are you trying to think of?
The equivalent. So for the British, it was this Hurricane and the Spitfire, right? The airplanes. And then for
American
the Germans,
Tornado.
it was the Bf 109. Was it a tornado? It might. Maybe.
What are we talking about? This sounds irrelevant. This sounds like we're talking about planes at the moment.
Yes, we are talking about planes. Yeah.
I don't care for planes.
Jesus.
Planes and trains and automobiles.
The Los Angeles Boeing 347. I don't know. I don't give a fuck. Cool. So Vegas will get a team.
Yes.
Europe has less teams.
Sad.
Valiant probably rebrand because let's
See ya.
scoot over to a side topic. We're getting a side quest here. Instead of going on with the main quest, we're getting a side quest. This is our what's that Fast and Furious side movie? What was it called? Hobbs and Shaw. This is our Hobbs and Shaw
Mm.
of the TCP podcast. This is how I know Eric doesn't watch Fast and Furious because he said Tokyo Drift. No, that is part of the main franchise.
Yep.
And I am quite an expert in Fast and Furious, I have you know. So, anyway, our Hobbs and Shaw side quest is the fact that there are more trademark suspensions.
Correct.
So, Philadelphia Fusion News this is off the back of Halo also reporting. Halo had said there had been rumors that a number of teams had been looking into potential relocation. Off the back of that, Philadelphia Fusion News says to expand on this, research has shown that teams of Paris Eternal, Toronto Defiant, Vancouver Titans, Guangzhou Charge, Los Angeles Valiant all have suspended their trademark. Now, I don't know how much we want to read into that. The Valiant one seems the most likely out of all of them, but the rest of them, I don't know if it makes a lot of sense.
No.
Well, the Paris one is provably
Paris,
correct because
obviously.
that actually did happen. But, for example, Toronto Defiant are not moving out of Toronto. They maybe you could change the name of Defiant to something else, but you're not moving out of Toronto.
No.
When that's literally the home base of the Defiant.
Yeah.
Charge. I don't think they move out of Guangzhou either. They just built a giant fucking facility.
Right.
They have infrastructure in Guangzhou, so I don't think they're moving.
Maybe just
Could it be a name
rebrand.
change? Maybe the Charge name could go. I don't know. Titans. Who fucking knows?
I
No
fucking
idea.
hope so. I'm so tired of
Where's
looking at their ugly logo.
Aquilini? Where's Aquilini based out of? I have no idea.
I feel like some of those might be because with CDL we had a certain amount of leeway given to teams in order to use their old brands, right? So we have the Atlanta phase, you know.
Sure. Yeah, I want the Vancouver Aquilinis or the Vancouver Luminosities.
Yeah, maybe it would even be the Vancouver, you know, sports team name. For Defiant, I think
we call it Canucks. I call it what?
No,
We're gonna get the Canucks
why did you have to
logo
say
changed.
it? I wanted him to struggle.
No, I don't care. Literally irrelevant to my life. Toronto could be Mad Lions, you know, even though it's more like the Spanish identity. And now we're bringing Europe back. Maybe you could move to Madrid, please, to save Europe. No, but I think a bunch of those will just be rebranding of their lame brands.
Yeah. Ooh, we're gonna have to get a new brand tier list from Yiska.
That seems very anti what the league franchising was all about. But
you ready for my tier list? Okay.
Of what?
Of
what?
Of brands.
League brands.
League brands. Okay. I struggle to have an S tier brand.
This is like the side mission of the side mission.
Correct.
What is happening here? What's going on?
So, like,
I'm just making him
absolute bottom tier is Fuel because Jesus Christ, why would you name your franchise Fuel? Like during an energy crisis,
It's not that bad, is it?
in Texas, where the clear implication is oil. Like, why not call it Dallas? Like, burn the planet. You know, like it's just like the connotations just suck.
Empire was an amazing brand, and I'm sad that it got killed for Optic. And I think the Empire brand was so much better than Fuel.
Right.
The Dallas Empire, their colors, their logo, everything, that was fucking insane. I loved it. That Empire brand, I think I like it more than most of any brand in esports altogether. It was just an insanely good, cool brand, in my opinion. That's just me, though.
And S tier would be NYXL. Oh, we can't say that anymore. Never mind. Go back to the Fuel tier. And then, like, everyone else is sort of like mid.
Mid?
So we
What's
are in
your
a situation.
favorite?
My Soul Dynasty.
Okay.
Yeah, I like the colors. I like the tiger.
I think the logo's a little uninspired.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, yeah. No, true. I don't know. Like, we don't have good brands. I'm sorry. Like I felt like the Defiant clothing was kind of okay, but
guys, we have Paris Eternal, and their logo is a cock that's in the shape of an infinity symbol.
Dude,
Actually, that's
that
really
tilts
clever.
me. By the no, it's nothing about this is clever. Why? What does eternity and infinity have to do with each other? We're
No,
once
no.
again at
It's
an
cool.
idiot's level of granularity. I'm tilted.
You know, it's cool. Also, Florida has a giant pink M inside of a giant pink bomb.
What does the bomb have to do with anything?
Also,
I mean, it
Shut
was,
up,
the
Boomer.
Chengdu Hunters is literally a panda.
but I mean, it was called. Wait, why are we confused at the mayhem thing?
I think the LA Gladiators brand is actually pretty cool, personally.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I don't hate it for sure. I think it's. I like the purple. The crest is a little cringe, but not too cringe.
Cringe.
You wanna know the most cringe thing? You wanna know the most cringe thing?
Well,
LA Gladiators are owned by Kroenke, who also own LA Rams, and the LA Rams colors is like baby blue and yellow, which is the colors that Valiant decided they'd take. So the other Los Angeles teams took the Rams colors,
no.
even though the Rams are owned by Kroenke, who owned Gladiators.
Yeah,
I thought that
that's
was quite funny.
Yeah.
Cringe. My granularity.
Okay, let's get back on. Let's go after Voldemort again. I'm sick of having side missions
Right.
where we ignore
Okay.
Voldemort.
Okay.
Time to go back and look for Voldemort. All right.
Yep.
Is that all the drama? Cover all the drama?
Is there
Molly,
not some
hang on.
charge
No, we
movement?
haven't. No, we haven't. We have Molly left to go. This is the part where if you're waiting to hear about actual Kickoff Clash, you're like, fuck, now still talking about drama.
How is this drama? Is this just a trade? Like, do I not understand
know.
drama? Can we?
Just-
If we can't say that is drama, I'm fine.
I'm just calling anything drama. I'm just calling anything drama now.
Right.
Gets the
Anything
kids
and everything
excited.
is drama.
Is that the trick?
Yeah, I
Drama
go
alert.
on for you. Dallas lost 0-4 drama. Okay, so Molly.
Right.
Molly.
I'm high on him.
Thank you.
I've never tried it.
I was
Molly
trying to goad you into
is
saying that.
It's not
No
hard.
longer on the charge.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think this is the biggest surprise, and here's a couple of things. One, he's been hard benched for Farway. Farway just joined the team, and Molly got hard benched. In an animator, nonetheless, which is probably Molly's signature hero. That tells you a fucking lot about what's going on. Second of all, there had been some conversations, some rumors in the background where Molly had shown up in Elsa's, if you remember Elsa from the Chengdu Hunters, Elsa's co-streams, and he'd been talking about, dropping some tidbits here and there, saying stuff like, maybe I should get into this as well. I'm not really playing anymore. I don't know. Basically, he was giving off the vibe that he wasn't part of the team anymore.
Yeah.
Right. So seeing this news, not a big surprise.
No.
Now, is Molly just the unluckiest player? Like perma-benched on Shanghai, perma-benched on Guangzhou, doesn't even get to play. He's actually rumored for Valiant. He's rumored.
Right.
Halo had a rumor for Valiant. Now, I don't mind that because Colders has been okay, but maybe Molly could be better. And also, Valiant are covering for a double flex meta, so I respect it. But yeah, how do we feel?
Yeah, it doesn't shock me. I think Faraway genuinely was just a more proven, better player. Yeah, I probably echo a lot of the same sentiments.
Molly's champion.
He does have a ring. He does have a chip, and we all know that's what matters most. You got chips. Yeah, I don't know. Valiant seems like an interesting home. I could see him starting.
The only
or
home.
at least competing.
The only home. Where else could he be?
Can't really go anywhere else. Yeah.
Spark, I guess, but I think Irony's been fine.
Yeah, and
I don't know.
I don't know. It's a team that it would probably just echo a lot of his track record, right? Like if he went to Spark, it'd probably just be a bench boy and a sub filler. Yeah, I think Valiant's probably his best bet if he wants to see some play time in the next year and a half.
Valiant got some money. Their roster keeps climbing in size.
Right. Yeah.
Speaking of teams that are apparently not broke, I don't know where they're getting money from, but Valiant have money suddenly. I don't know.
Somehow, no hill season.
Yeah,
he's using Groupon.
Apparently, yeah, looking that way.
Wish him the best. I mean, I think the criticism around him is fairly valid at this point, where he just hasn't played, and it's just like, okay, why aren't teams playing him? They sign him and they just don't play him. What gives? I mean, Shanghai, that's a hand wave, but what gives? Why is Molly not seeing playtime? I think there is reason to be suspect, but
I mean, Farway could just be better. It might not be that complicated.
Yeah. Probably
Yiska had a
isn't.
take.
But
Yiska had a take. I want to hear it.
Am I wrong for caring very little for this? It's like
no.
Mirror going
moving
to
on.
Titans.
Moving on.
It's like, yeah, I guess that happened.
Are you L plus ratio right now?
Yiska, I don't care. It was on the sheet
That's
of
right.
drama. That
I'm
needed to
just
be covered.
creating drama by saying who? Megalo?
Who Megalo?
That guy
You
still
cannot
exists?
you cannot be talking about an Overwatch League champion that way. Right? Have some accountability. Is it time to actually? I don't have more to add to here except that I would like to see what Molly's capable of, and maybe he does need a new home because it's not happening on the charge.
Sure.
Let us talk about finally the Kickoff Clash.
Kickoff Clash.
Now,
Damn.
we're not going to talk about every single game,
No, Jesus.
but let's just go over NA generally speaking.
Sure.
Um,
You want an interesting entry point? Because I have one.
okay.
Who cares about NA? Let's go over towards APAC, where the actual real games happen. Okay, so we have the Dallas live event, which by the way looked really fucking cool.
Yeah.
I asked some people on Twitter to like send me some video footage of what the viewing experience was going to be like, because you can't get that online. You obviously you get some footage of like what the venue looks like, but I wanted to get it. I wanted to get a feel for like if I was in the crowd as a fan. What is my live experience like? So I asked a bunch of people to give me video footage, and they did. It looked pretty good. I thought it was quite cool. And actually from different areas as well. Like I got a photo from Avalo, who was in a VIP, which she paid for. And I don't know why I felt the need to add that. I think just in case people assume that
she got like the hookup.
She just got a hookup or something. No, she's a legit Overwatch fan who wanted to be there. And yeah, we had some other footage. I think Ms. Liz also took some footage as well. Cool looking thing. Apparently the food was good. Some of the fans told me the food was actually good.
Okay. Nice.
The tickets were not very expensive. You could buy a single ticket to any of the days or like a weekend pass. I think the weekend pass was $99. Which
terrible.
Joe, you're an American. You can tell me if a 4-day weekend pass for $99 general admission.
I mean, the issue, the only thing that I can compare it to was like when, and I'm looking to go again. Don't put this by me. Don't think like I'm sleeping on this. When I used to go to anime conventions locally, the 3-day weekend pass was about $60. I mean, if you've listened to this podcast for more than like 30 seconds, you get the gist of who I am as a person for the most part. But and like that's only 60. And there's like a lot of stuff to do to buy. Like,
really?
It's perfect.
Yeah.
What are you doing there for 3 days?
The exact same thing you do at esports events, just bigger.
You're watching anime there?
You can if you want to.
Okay.
I wouldn't. It's about like.
So what do you do there?
Honest to God, my ideal, like actually sitting in the food court and just people watching for like at least 50% of the time.
First of all, you can do that at home. Speaking of doing things at home, actually you can't unless you have a food court at home or you live at a food court. You actually can't do it at home. But also,
you don't. I
feel like, am I wrong in that I think anime is a very private activity? It's like not something you want to do publicly. You know.
Yeah, I
like
would
masturbation.
Agree.
You want to do that privately. You know. And honestly, those
Curious
two things
Jonas both at the same time.
Not mutually exclusive. Not mutually exclusive is what I'm. The next point.
Sure.
The point is, anime just seems like one of those devious activities that you don't want to do in broad daylight. You understand me? Like you have to do this in the shade of night in a dark alleyway or in a man cave. So
I think that's
VIP
reasonable.
ticket was $229.
VIP. Those were like the tables up front, yeah.
Yeah, you get the tables up front. You could get some signed goodies. Yes.
You know how wild that is to a German?
Signed goodies.
What's wild?
The
What,
prices.
anime or signed goodies?
Oh, the prices.
Well, because they're not in euros; they're in American dollars.
Yeah, no, but
99
like
is a little touchy.
a season
I think.
ticket, I think, at my local club when they were still in Bundesliga for the entire season, so all home games, was like 150.
Jeez.
140 maybe.
Yeah, but is that general admission or is that like a fucking corporate box?
That's general admission.
For season tickets. One that's I mean, I don't know any kind of comparison.
Let me look it up.
That
Don't know,
seems
man.
cheap. That seems very reasonable.
This isn't even like an important talking point. It's just like
No.
just curious
interesting,
about
though.
like what kind of stuff we got going on.
Yeah.
And because these Overwatch events are super fucking rare,
Mm-hmm.
I actually think the 229.
Yeah.
Look, if you're a hardcore enough fan, I think 229 seems like
You're
a
willing to
pretty
pay
good,
for it. People
seems
were.
pretty cool, like up for a good seat for 4
Yeah.
days. I'll take that. Aside from that, though, the actual games, the fact that we had proper LAN,
True.
very cool stuff, and it's not one of those LAN events where one of the teams isn't there.
Yeah.
Everybody was there. Thankfully, no one got COVID in the middle of the event.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, did this go how we thought it was going to go? Let's clear up where our prids went first of all, because this is where I get to brag about printing gladiators correctly, but this is also where I get to lament about the fact that I failed to prid them in my pick'ems. So
It's
I
because we
printed them on the
bullied
show.
you. We bullied you into picking glads because Joe and I were like both like, maybe glads, and then we didn't because we're such cowards.
Yeah, I think we define bullying very differently, Sir German.
I'll take it. I'll take that because now I get to pretend like I knew the entire time.
I really
Whereas,
wanted to. Fuck.
It's like I definitely didn't pick gladiators out of peer pressure. I definitely picked them because I knew, right? I expected them to be good. I expected them to be really good. I mean, let's talk about surprises here though, because this tournament definitely boomed some pick'ems, mine included, mine especially.
Yeah.
Just straight away, the fact that Washington go 2-3 versus Shock is
that was
pretty hardcore. But I think a lot of people thought that Florida were going to beat Atlanta. And we even all predicted Florida as well. And I specifically remember this episode where I said, I don't think it's clear for Mayhem. I don't think this is a clear Mayhem win. I said at the time, this seems like a very flipped match where Atlanta could very easily come out and just win this one. And all the fans, everyone else I knew was predicting, they were like, oh yeah, definitely Florida. And I think a lot of people were blinded by just hatred and disliking of the Reign brand and drama. Speaking of drama. And because of that, they pitted against the Reign. Not because they thought they were bad, or something, maybe because they thought they were bad, but mostly because they just didn't like the team. I mean, that's and because they lose their last 2 games, they're like, oh yeah, well, I guess they can't beat Florida. But in my mind, I'm like, I don't think that's just not the Reign I know. The Reign I know come back fired up as fuck, and like the fact that Reign finish 3rd, or 4th, 3rd.
It's not bad at all.
Ahead of Shock. They beat Shock. They came out ahead of Shock. How fucking insane is that?
I think
that woke people the fuck up. That woke some people up in terms of like hating on the Reign, but then they still come 3rd.
I think we specifically talked about this in terms of like a market correction. And the funny thing is, the way we talked about it, I still recall AVRL, it's like we said there will be a market correction in terms of Atlanta. It's probably just too soon to expect that of them, but it will eventually come. I think that's something that you said. And then we also all said like...
Said that about Shock.
Shock, exactly, is in for a market correction as well, where 6-0 is probably not up to the level that we would expect them to play at, right?
Yeah.
So both of these events happened in one match, seemingly, and then, of course, also in the follow-up where Shock got stomped by Dallas. So, yeah, I feel like it's not necessarily like all doomsday scenarios for Shock, but that was a necessary like reset of expectations that we had to have. because I think it was always like, that's the reason why we thought like Dallas might still be the best team in North America and whatnot, right? At the same time, I will say, like, the reasons as to why Glads won this, we already also mentioned last episode. And I have to not take credit here, but like I talked to Christopher about this, and he predicted pretty much the outcome as to how this would transpire. And a major part in this tournament was, once again, and unfortunately Florida wasn't able to take advantage of that too much, but main tank flexibility. Or tank flexibility, right? And I feel like a lot of this was about that, and teams that couldn't deliver that had some problems, even though what I definitely didn't predict was Doom to come back to the degree that we saw it.
Well, you know why? It's because of all the teams playing Ryan.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put a bit of a doorstop in that flexibility conversation, because yes, flexibility, sure, in a vacuum, but I think it's a little bit more of a nuanced conversation, because when we talk about tank flexibility, I'm not talking about like, oh yeah, play like all these different tanks and play both off tank and main tank, which I think is ideal. You do want to do that. Someone and Smurf, I think, are the two most flexible tanks, even though this is really annoying Reddit narrative right now, and most of them are annoying, but this one in particular, where it's just like, oh man, Reiner Rookie of the Year, because he's like the most flexible player.
He won.
First of all, Reiner is really, really good, and absolutely is in the Rookie of the Year candidacy conversation, 100%.
Yeah.
However, saying it's because he's flexible, bullshit.
That's weird,
fucking bullshit. Doesn't play off tanks. Hasn't shown. As soon as off tanks become irrelevant, space comes in Reiner's bench.
Yep.
Promise you that. Promise you. We already see that. We already see it on Escort. You go to most Escort maps. Well, sorry, you go to Circuit Royale primarily. Space comes in. If Zarya is hard meta when I say hard meta, because she was hard meta in a way, but when I say hard meta, I mean like you have to play Zarya or you lose.
Legit, yeah.
Who do you think the Zarya player is going to be? Reiner or Space?
Space.
So I'm not trying to dunk on Reiner, because I think he's a really good player who's definitely in that Rookie of the Year conversation, is deservingly so. But the reason that he's in there is not because he's quote unquote flexible. All you need to do in this meta to succeed is have 2 out of these 3 heroes, and you'll be there. One of those 2 heroes has to be a Winston. If you have that, you're good to go. Your next hero needs to be either a Zarya or a Ryan. That's it. Yep. Doom, optional. Don't even need the Doom. Completely irrelevant.
Extra.
Well, it's not completely irrelevant, but it's not required. You don't need a Doom. What you do need, I think, is a Winston, and then one of Zarya or Ryan, or both, if you're really good, if you're Smurf. But it's a provable fact. It's a proven and provable fact that both Someone and Smurf are more flexible tank players than Reiner. So let's stop circle jerking this Reiner flexibility shit and acknowledge that he is a good tank that deserves to be in the Rookie of the conversation, but not because he's quote unquote flexible. That's just complete bullshit. He's flexible in the sense that he plays all the main tanks, but great, you've done the bare minimum of what a main tank should do, which is play all your heroes. So I don't think that's not a cause for celebration. Wow, this guy plays the heroes he's expected to play. Oh my goodness. Everyone clap. You know, oh my god, he plays the heroes expected of him. Wow.
Yeah, it's a dose of recency bias. They won, so it's like, oh, all the players on the team that won, they get, a big +1 to the community. He is good. Nobody's saying he's not.
He won because he's good, but it's not because he fucking had some leave or Pelican Flex Scott. Like, the fuck is that about? Shut the fuck up. It's not true. Yeah. Man gets instantly benched for space as soon as off tanks are relevant. So let's talk about the fact that how does the meta go? Because you had this conversation with Christopher Yiska, which I think is really interesting. And I had very similar thoughts, because I remember, I came in on the grand finals day. We were watching in Discord, and like, man, Christopher, he's a genius. He knew all this. I'm like, yeah. I mean, I could have also just told you that if you asked me. And I think I explained at the time, but I'll explain again. It's like this entire meta comes down to kind of a rock paper scissors scenario, not heavily so.
Yeah.
But in a minor kind of way, there is a rock paper scissors scenario where the Zarya not Zarya herself, but Zarya compositions do a good job of punishing Winston or giving Winston a negative matchup. The reason for that is because Zarya heavily enables Reaper, and Reaper then punishes the Winston. However, the Rhine then punishes the Zarya compositions because it is difficult for the Zarya to brawl up against a hero with a massive HP pool with a lot of shield and a lot of HP. And honestly, in melee combat, has potentially higher damage output as well. And in this meta, a much scarier ultimate than a Grav. A Grav is much lower value than a Shatter in this current meta. So when you think about what Zarya is, she is a brawl tank. She is a tank that plays on the ground, that rushes into you with a Lucio, and is a pseudo Rhine, but not really a Rhine. So if you want to play real brawl, if you want to get into the nitty gritty of brawling against another team on the ground, a Rhine is going to be better in that brawl than Zarya is. So Rhine has a better matchup into Zarya, but then Rhine kind of gets countered by Dive. Now, I'm about to bring in a fourth equation into the rock, paper, scissors. So we're no longer really necessarily in rock, paper, scissors. Or I could just do, to make this analogy easier, I will combine Winston and Doom into like one hero here and just call it Dive. So Zarya kind of beats Dive because of Reaper. Ryan beats Zarya because of brawl versus brawl, quote unquote mirror match. It's not exactly a mirror matchup, but it's a mirror matchup that favors the Ryan because they both play the same style, but the Ryan is just better in that matchup compared to Zarya. And then you have the Dive beating the brawl because the Dive is, it's faster, it flanks, it covers the areas that the Ryan can't. The Ryan simply can't hold shields in 360 directions. Struggles to gap close, even with the new charge. Struggles to gap close, struggles to take height, struggles to do anything meaningful against heroes that are out of his range, which Dive is very good at outranging the Rhine. And then when they do engage the Rhine, they multi-angle him, they flank him. And actually, it's not even about killing the Rhine. It's not about dealing with the Rhine in that matchup. It's about having easy access to the backline where the Rhine can't cover all angles to protect that backline, if that makes sense. So it is map dependent as well. It's not even just a clear rock, paper, scissors. It's not, I don't think it's like, oh, if you play this, you 100% lose to this. It's just that what gives you a better matchup, what gives you a worse matchup. Yeah, so it's a favorability thing. And then map design, map terrain, map geometry adds to favorability of all of those matchups as well. So that's what I'm saying. As long as you can play two things in there, you're covered. So if you are Reiner and you play both Winston and Ryan, you're great. The Doom is really helpful as well because against teams that want to match you in Ryan versus Ryan, like Atlanta, you can bring out the Doom. So to that degree, really what we got is we have a rock, paper, scissors matchup where Reiner has the correct counter at all times. But he still didn't play any off tanks. Doesn't need to play any off tanks here. But he didn't play any off tanks. So he's flexible in the sense that he had all the correct counters within the main tank pool required in the space of a single player. That's what was good about Reiner.
Did Dallas misplay then by not counting on, like maybe already earlier on Fearless Winston Ryan?
I don't know.
I think Dallas believed the Zarya was going to be flexible enough just to beat everything. And I think they did not expect the Ryan to be as good of a counter as they did. Or maybe they had hoped that other teams wouldn't figure it out. So Dallas probably put all their eggs in the wrong basket, yes. But my expectation for a player like Hanbin is that he should have also brought out the Doom. Because I know he's got Doom. I know that's in his purple. So if Reiner wants to counter you with the Ryan, you should think about Doom. However, this is the concession I'm willing to make. So that being the case, why did Hanbin not run as much Doom or at all? Because to enable the Doom composition, you have to swap so many heroes that it fucks with your team comp. Because you have to get off the Reaper. If you go Doom, you probably need either Genji Soldier or Genji Tracer or Soldier Tracer. So you need to change shit up.
So it's really about the inflexibility on the DPS picks then for Dallas. That
No. Even if you swap, you are losing two ultimates. You're having to change too much. Think about it. If you how do I put this? To be honest, there's the counter argument I would have is that and here's where I'm arguing against myself a little bit, is that the Brine brawl-based composition, if they were to change, would also have to make some big changes. But the one thing that you'll notice about the way the Glads played was that Shu was not playing Bab. He's playing Ana.
Yeah.
Big reason for that. You do not want to lock yourself into a heavy Rhine brawl comp that relies on BAP. Normal Rhine brawl comps rely on BAP. Really good hero in that matchup. But because he was permanently playing the Ana and not the BAP, it makes it more difficult for Harbin just to swap Doom when Ana does counter Doom. And also, it means that if Harbin does swap Doom and Rhine is not comfortable in that matchup anymore, Rhine can just go Winston or some shit, and he can go a different hero, and the Ana is still relevant. And what DPS were they on? I think they were on May Soldier, or was it May Tracer maybe?
Who now? The Dallas or
Glads.
Glads?
They played May plus something. May plus 1, right? It was May plus 1?
Yeah. And that changed
So,
a little, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, as long as they can... Yeah, I guess they would still have to change 2 heroes as well, but it's really important that they play the Ana in that matchup.
Yeah.
So, I still think maybe Dallas could have attempted the Doom more to try and play up against the Rhine, but that never really happened. Also, map design, again, enters a conversation where, let's say, for example, Route 66 C point.
Yeah.
Not a great position for Doom. So even if you were like, oh, Rhine is playing Rhine, should I go the Doom to counter? The map geometry doesn't favor the Doom, even if the character 1v1 in a vacuum does. So there's that difficulty as well. So because Harbin doesn't bring out the Rhine or whatever, or he can't play the Rhine as well, Dallas are hard forced into a Zarya only comp. And this is the part where when you look at what the conversations were behind the scenes, or even publicly from the Glads camp, was that, yeah, I mean, all the other teams, including Dallas, are just way too inflexible, and we are a far more flexible team. And that's completely true, because they can play multiple different comps. Dallas can't. Seoul as well, same reason. Seoul play multiple different comps, and for that reason, I think they were way more capable of bringing out different looks to get the best look possible. And they can, even better, Smurf can do it all. They can do it all in one person instead of having to split between both Space and Rhino. But yeah, that's my sort of macro analysis on Glads.
I think the one thing that I would add to what Christopher said is that, as far as I can remember, he didn't see the Doom comp as a counter. It was like a 50-50 matchup.
Into the Rhine?
Map dependent. Yeah. Map dependent.
Yeah. For sure.
Because I think, like, stylistically, so discussions that AVRL and I have had, I think, on the show previous, like, it makes perfect sense as to why the Doom would actually pair well into the Rhine. There are just some maps in particular that, like, really favor that Rhine comp and make it very difficult to kind of surround to be able to engage. So it's one of those interesting ones that I think we need more time to see over the course of the season. And like you said, it's very map dependent.
As much as Christopher says that, rewind back to Houston, London, and you will see perfectly why the Doom plays well into the Rhine. So as much as Christopher may believe that, it is, and maybe that's because Christopher in London had more lessons learned after losing to Houston, after progressing through. But that Houston-London matchup is an excellent case study to back my point of where Doom's place was in the meta. That's why I said, like, that's why I think a lot of people were surprised maybe that Houston won that matchup. But to me, it was fucking obvious. It was like either Houston 3-0 or get 0-3'd. And really just comes down to what Dante plays, if he's available.
Yeah, I think Christopher would probably say that they misplayed big time in that matchup. But I recall that as well. But I'm not 100%... I don't want to put words in his mouth, so... Yeah. But I will say, like, and it's a weird discussion to have, but like, I feel like it was a little sad, and maybe like not the type of discourse that I would have liked to have had. It's like, and Atlanta players and coaches mocked it also to a decent degree. It's like, I understand the cult of personality around Ante, but you gotta give some credit to FaZe, but also Smash. Right?
Sure.
Like, I remember like Errol, you specifically pointed out Smash as like a brain behind like
true.
Auto Blast in the past. Like FaZe has been in a assistant coach position for the Gladiators, now in a head coach position, first tournament ever, wins it. And to not see their names mentioned much at all is something that I didn't like, specifically because the historical through lines in how this match or how these matches were won, for instance, let's say, draw the line between like, you know, FaZe and Padapan, right? And that, like, in Talon, blah, 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 says best player in the world. Down the line, 3 years later, he gets the kid, makes him once again, makes him an Overwatch League champion at the first situation. That's a storyline that I would have liked to have seen highlighted, not only, and I understand also why, and I'm certainly set myself guilty of also, not guilty, I did both. But like, funny mullet man, haha, but also very smart, like, bald man, praise. And I felt like the second part was not highlighted.
It's all optics.
Served, yeah.
The most egregious thing I read, which is, it shouldn't have been, but it just like, for people like us that probably look at it in more of a nuanced way, this one comment that was like, oh yeah, Unta made Padapan good. I'm like, how do you know that? Like, what are you talking about? Like, what does that comment mean? Are you in the coaching sessions? How the fuck?
That's nuts.
Where did you get that from? Like, you're just making that up now. I'm not saying Unta didn't, but
No,
like,
I'm sure he played a role.
The level of confidence Redditors have in these
Yeah.
takes is just like, what are you basing this off? It's like, it's just a cult of personality. Yeah, it's optics. You're scared. All it is optics. It's like, Unta's the most front-facing person on that team.
Yep.
Also wasn't Atlanta as well. And so that's a double-edged sword. It's both good and bad, because it means you're going to get more credit for wins. You probably will get more flack for losing as well. But although that being said, Unta didn't get any flack for when Atlanta were losing, because for some reason the Reddit narrative was that Atlanta only joined the team after they stopped losing or whatever, or he made them good was the narrative. Even though Unta's come out and he's debunked that narrative personally. All the Atlanta player tweets were funny as well, because they all played into that debunked narrative, because they're like, oh man, Unta is everything on that team. Like, they were like, oh dude, Gladiators won only because of Unta. It was like just tweets in that vein, where it's just like they're just feeding into the classic Reddit takes, right? Like those are all the classic Reddit takes that you probably end up seeing. But yeah, look, I really appreciate Dpei coming out and congratulating his old team and his ex-assistant coach on his first head coach outing. And Dpei even said, like, you know, coach of the year maybe, FaZe first tournament as head coach, instant win. Gladiators looking like they were filled with different looks and strategies and different ways to handle the game. Excellent read on the meta in terms of how they handled it, and outplayed Rush in a meta where Dallas have usually been front runners and dictating metas. I think that's a huge plus for the coaching staff of Glads to have sort of outplayed Rush in, you know, in getting the most out of metas and deciphering metas and all that kind of stuff. That's huge from a coaching perspective. So yeah, the rest of the coaches on Glads definitely deserve a bit more respect than they've been given. But FaZe is just not a very front-facing person. And Smash as a Korean coach on an English-speaking team, like, he's not going to be that front-facing either, obviously. Even Krusty, like, he's probably the most front-facing Korean coach, but he's gotten a lot more comfortable in terms of his own English ability, being on the shock. I would even say that's probably an outlier, right? Most Korean coaches on Western teams are not going to be that front-facing. So, yeah. Look, it's great for Hunter. He's my friend, and he deserves all the recognition. But yeah, definitely FaZe deserves some recognition as well, because the kind of, again, Reddit level takes I saw when Dpei left the team and FaZe was promoted, and all the some of the takes just like, who's this FaZe guy? Like, oh, why'd they get this guy to be the head coach? All this kind of bullshit. Like, some of the people who didn't even know he was the assistant coach and just assumed things. It's like, man, Do some fucking research. Come on, guys. You gotta do better than that. That's
Mhm.
just disappointing.
It's really like faces to Dpei what Deku is to All Might. Because if you think about it, All Might has smashes. That way he has to put his shoulder into it.
Yeah. Well, elbow grease.
And Face has the legs because he runs marathons.
Oof. Marathon runner.
Based. Look at you. You're crazy.
I would at least last 6 hours at an anime convention.
You would probably enjoy your time. I think that's definitely one of my bucket lists is to get you drunk at an anime convention because you
what
probably
is-
have a time.
Because we still have to talk about APAC.
Yes.
What was some of the biggest surprises in the NA side of the bracket? Outside of I don't know if you want to talk more about Dallas, but we've kind of covered Gladiators Dallas a little bit here.
Yeah.
I don't know if there were any other surprises in terms of teams. Maybe Defiant getting pushed out as quickly as they did. Maybe Washington looking reasonable against Shock before kind of getting pushed out themselves. Maybe Atlanta coming third would have been a big surprise. But even though we kind of covered it, I don't think it really shouldn't be a huge surprise, but it is to people that don't understand Atlanta and that just dislike them because of brand reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta be Shock, right?
That's surprising.
You said they were due for
No, but
correction,
like
so in a way, it's
the
not-
way in which they did it, you know, like
Sure.
they barely get past Justice. Probably shouldn't have. Then they lose to Atlanta.
Mhm.
And then honestly, like that game also in most universes goes to game 5 between Houston and Shock. Right?
Okay.
So overall, like, yeah, it's not an atrocious performance here. It's also not one you would expect, for instance, like a 6-0 possible title contender team to have.
Sure.
Because they
sure.
didn't look competitive against Dallas, right?
No, not at all. But
Well, here's the problem. If you're Kaluge, you either run the Winston into Edison's Reaper or you run Zarya into Hanbin Zarya. Those are options. Doesn't play Ryan.
Nope.
If you played Ryan, could be a different story. Doesn't play Ryan. You have no favorable matchup versus Dallas. You either get countered by their Reaper or you get. Unfortunately, you are worse Zarya than Hanbin. Although, to be fair, that's not the worst thing in the world. I think every Zarya is the worst Zarya compared to Hanbin. So
sure.
it is what it is. You know, no one was going to win that versus him.
Yep.
Hawk tried. Credit to him, he tried, but couldn't get it done. That, by the way, is also potentially an issue with Atlanta, being that they banked everything on Hawk and his hero pool is Zarya Doom.
Yep.
When, unironically, banking on Gator would have been better for this tournament, but I don't think they have the scrim time with Gator. I don't think they have the.
Yep.
You know, I don't think they're practiced enough with Gator to make that happen, even though if Gator literally playing only Winston and Ryan, kind of just copying Reiner, could have probably have done it. But Atlanta needed to bet on that horse far earlier to make that happen. So, hindsight 2020.
Would be nice. Shock in general felt suspect outside of like proper just like doing what he does, you know, being the Dream Eater. It didn't seem like that second DPS slot was necessarily always like online, if that makes sense. I think Sam coming in drew a lot of community feedback or outrage, let's say. I think people wanted to just see more Kilo. I think Kaluge in general has been very like skittish. Not in terms of skill, but just in terms of playstyle with the Ryan. Shock felt very measured, and I don't think they necessarily played all that well. Like it was a little slow. It was a little passive, and I think teams really took advantage of that. And then like I think the only reason why they got this far is genuinely, and I don't say this lightly, because of proper. Like that's just the kind of caliber.
Which by the way, and this is to address all the weird knee-jerk, incredibly recency biased people out there who are like, oh, proper lost, therefore no longer rookie of the year. Oh, Glad's won. Okay, Patapan rookie of the year. It's like, you motherfuckers, like 2 weeks ago, were saying Patapan was like the worst player in the league.
Yeah.
and now you're knee jerking the opposite direction. Like, the fuck is wrong with you? Like, Patapan, by the way, props to him. I fucking love that kid. So proud of him. But some of the reactions are so weird. It's just like, man, you guys were shitting on this guy hardcore not that long ago. And now you're sucking his nuts. Like, what you guys are some of the most flip-floppy mofos in the world. I swear to God. Bunch of weirdos. So, yeah, I mean, I think we really got a tour de force display of like a bunch of different rookies. Patapan coming in looking fucking amazing. I think the moment I was like, oh, Glads, there's no way they lose the series, was Route 66, B point, Patapan's on high ground, beaming everybody down.
Yeah.
And no one in Dallas could even look at him because they couldn't address him at all. And in that moment, I was like, yeah, Dallas lose. They simply lose.
He just got the turret. Won. Yep. He's playing PvE.
The fact that Proper, by the way, dragged his team kicking and screaming as far as he did really speaks to his ability as well. And just because he loses to Dallas doesn't invalidate his claim to any awards or anything. Like, the kid is still unbelievably good. Anybody that can turn the tide of a game single-handedly and just force their will upon the game is on a different level.
Yep.
So
the Dorado against Justice? Yeah, I think that was it. Like, that first point, like the 3K into like 2 crazy like headshot flicks. Like, kid's nuts.
I did wish we got to see the San Francisco versus Dallas game easier. I think it would have been more competitive pre-tournament, but in tournament, as Shock have less answers to the Zarya and Dallas are only improving on the Zarya. Yeah, I mean, Shock getting blasted out. When you look at what the hero pools of the players were and what the matchups that Shock could play under, they weren't going to get a positive matchup there. And versus a team like Dallas, you need a positive matchup. I guarantee you, by the way, had Gladiators played only Zarya and tried to just play Zarya mirror into Dallas, Dallas probably come out on top. Dallas probably end up being the Kickoff Clash champions. This is why you got to credit the Dallas coaching quite heavily, because they figured out the proper counter. They figured out how to work around the Zarya problem, and the answer was not, okay, let's just put the space on Zarya and hope for the best. That was never going to be your answer. Your answer is like, we need to find valuable counters and viable ways to beat Dallas, because we're not going to be able to match Harbin. You simply can't. The guy's a fucking demon, and you have to work around him. You can't go through him. So, yeah. That being said, I think Harbin's, and this is the other thing, that this other knee-jerk claim as well. People were heavy on this MVP Harbin train, which, by the way, I started, and then they just jump off because he loses. I'm like, guys, you guys are like, you're some fair weather MFers out there. I swear to God, some real fair weather MFers. Just, guys, Jesus Christ. These are the kind of people that would dump stocks like the minute it dips down by 1 cent.
Yeah, terrible investors.
I will say, I thought it was going to happen. I think Hanbin played like Ryan for like 2 minutes or something, and I was like, oh my God,
like,
does he really have one, dude? Does he really have a Ryan as well? He's the best player to ever do it. What is going on? And then they switched off.
I mean, speaking of that, like, best player to ever do it, like that energy, right? I want to capture the energy, not necessarily the definitive, vocabulary, but the energy. I think it would be remiss if we don't talk about Pelican, right? That immortalized crazy push, comeback, hold, that I think does a great job of encapsulating why we need live events, why we need people back in arenas, why we need butts in seats, because stuff
Pelican,
like that in Overwatch
one of the best
2,
players in the world, the best player in Houston. Let's go.
Yeah, like, that's a special moment. I think Uber and the casters and everybody in the community has definitely celebrated as much. But I don't think that's the end of what we see in Overwatch 2. I think this is only the start of like these crazy plays. It's a game that does facilitate this. We need this.
As cool as that play was, and it was fucking amazing. Talking about the Hanzo final fight thing.
Yeah. Awesome.
The only thing that's uncool about that are the people using that as evidence to say that, oh, push is fine. Look, you can come back and push. Yeah. When one of the best fucking players in the world,
somebody has to will it.
Enters the fucking matrix and rewrites the code, it becomes possible. Yeah. That is not equivalent to the average game at all.
No.
They
You
they
dumb
don't even
fucks.
understand the argument either, you know? Like, then someone, by the way, like, you're a champion, and I respect you, and you're also a little bit loony, but someone went through 74 maps of push that we've played so far, and, like, tracked all the distances and whatnot, and it came out, like, I mean, there were several stats, but it basically showed that it is very hard to come back. We all acknowledge that it's very hard to come back from a 99-0 as well on control maps. That is not the point, though. You know, like especially like, let's say in an escort map, right? Like, if a team is outmatched, that match ends way quicker than it does on push, right? Like, very rarely, so far 3 times only, is a team so outmatched that they get their shit pushed in and this match ends quickly, right? The problem with this mode is that I'm looking at a 60-meter difference, and now, like, because the best way to assure victory is not to push that to the end, but instead to always go back, win a fight, go back, win a fight, go back, for the winning team, you are now torturing people for 5 minutes. Bro, had, which game was it? It was, wait, which was the game where it was actually pushed in this weekend? Was it Dallas, Atlanta?
Dallas. Yes, I think it was Dallas, Atlanta. Yeah. They had 100. They had over 100 meters.
Right.
114 meters with still, I think, 5 minutes left.
5 minutes or so. This game is over.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then.
Yep.
Also, the worst thing that can happen for you. And you're all like, oh, there's so many puck moments. No, there aren't that many. There are like 3 moments this far this season. You know what moment does happen? A Dallas being humiliated in front of their crowd, sitting there like, yeah, I guess, like, this is now 95% of the cases it's over. Hopefully our crowd doesn't know those stats because we lost. Fuck. I guess this is an offline event. My team's playing here. I know it's losing, and now I have to sit through this for 6 minutes. Like,
Correct.
This is the horse shit that we're talking about. Because the other game modes, like, for instance, an escort map or like a hybrid map, you would just not cap the point, get the extra time, and therefore the thing would end. Like, there's 2 ways you can get rid of this. Either you make it very easy to just push your shit in and make it the best strategy to do that, which very likely means you have to change map archetype to an unreasonable degree, making it essentially a new game mode. Or, like, you have, like, a way to, like, after, maybe the game time shrinks down after someone pushed past a point. Okay, so you lock in first point, therefore the team that wins, has blocked in first point, subtracts 2 minutes from the clock or something.
Or you cap first point and the map ends. Straight up. No, I'm not joking. Yeah. I'm not joking. But you play best of 3. So the biggest problem is what you said. The game doesn't end when one team is effectively won. In every other game mode, the game just fucking ends.
Yeah.
If my team is way fucking better than your team and we 100-0'd you on a control map, it's over.
Yeah.
We're not there torturing the fans for another 4 fucking minutes. Yeah. It's over.
Yeah.
In push, you get like a 60, 70 meter difference on the other team, but there's still like 4 minutes, 5 minutes left on the clock. And, you know, even if you wanted to push to the end and finish the map, it's too fucking hard.
Yeah.
So it just never happens. And before somebody says, well, Dallas just did it, it's like, bro, 1 time out of fucking how many?
Yeah, we had 3
I think there's 3 total in all of NA.
Yeah.
So don't give me that shit. Don't start with that shit. It doesn't happen. Yeah. It does not happen.
Yeah.
So majority of the games where a good team plays a bad team on push, 4 minutes to 5 minutes of the game is fucking pointless.
Yeah.
Literally a waste of time.
Yes. I pulled up these stats just to, you know, embolden your guys' points. First fight on Colosseo, upwards of 50%. That seems to be pretty reasonable. What's interesting is New Queen Street is high, like mid to high 50s. Second fight, it's both maps are both within like the high 60s. If you cap,
it's 3 fights in.
Correct. Capping the first
3 fights in.
Cap is where like things get ridiculous, where if you cap the first checkpoint on New Queen Street, you are nearing 90% win rate. Now, if you go by distance by map, which is kind of interesting because New Queen Street seems to be the problem child, like more often than not.
I can explain why, but anyway.
Sure. Just to lay out the numbers before you do. 15 meters already puts you at a 60% win rate on New Queen Street, just as a whole. And if you go to AVRL's kind of trademark 60 meters, both maps are well within the 80 to 90% win rate. This has gotten to a point where it is infringing on like the viewing experience that like, this is over. It's not good.
You think so, but there's still people out there trying to argue against it. And
Sure.
I'm just like, you don't know what you're talking about. I am proud of the fact that, like, I think first week of beta, I acknowledged the 60 meters was about the mark. And that's just from all my time watching scrims and alpha on these maps. I'd basically sit that. I'm glad the stats back it up, but in my mind, it was like between 60 and 80 is the zone of win. Like, you just win if you're in there. And you'll notice as well in the Seoul versus Philly cast for that New Queen Street map, I specifically made it a point to acknowledge during the cast so that the people at the home know this, they know to look out for this. But if Seoul cap the checkpoint, Seoul win. Said that.
Yep.
Cannot allow Seoul to cap this checkpoint. If Philly want any chance of winning, they must at all cost prevent Seoul from capping the checkpoint. The saddest part was, as soon as Seoul capped the checkpoint, it was over. I knew it was over. Achilleos probably knew it was over too, because I complained about this mode enough that he understands my complaints very clearly. But we still have to cast another 3 minutes of bullshit. Yeah. Where I'm like, I just have to find different ways of telling the audience, actually, guys, it's over. It's kind of actually over. I'm sorry, but like, Soul cap the checkpoint is actually done. I don't know how to do this anymore. Sorry. So, but I'm an Oscar award-winning actor, so I just pretended it wasn't over. So let's finish up this talk and then we can actually get into APAC because we're already leaning into it anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the fact that we end map 4 on push is so fucking gross. Because even looking back at this, don't even go there, bro. Actually, absolutely the worst. Because you can look at this Glad's VOD back. When did they cap? They capped with about 3. Hard to fucking tell because it's black littering on purple. They capped with about 3-ish minutes left. And at that point, Grand Finals was over. Yeah. And if you're anyone that knows anything about push, it's the most anticlimactic thing in the world because at that point, just fucking get out of your seat and hand the trophy over. There's actually no point in playing anymore. Yep. It's actually ridiculous that that the game mode requires you play out the rest when a team has clearly won.
I think the immediate feedback that I would like to see the league implement is the removal of double push weeks and the readjusting of push into the first 2 maps being played in a series. You cannot have a series end on push as it stands now. I think we'd all agree with that for the most part. AVRL, would you agree?
Absolutely. I will be submitting that feedback as well to not have the push.
It can't be map 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. Period. The end. You cannot have a series have the potential to end on push as it currently stands.
The only problem is with that is if you play the rest of the season where push is map 4 and then you suddenly change it to map 2, it's weird, right? Like you have to have a standard of when it comes in. So they would have to change the standard entirely to always guarantee push be map 2, which Look, if that prevents us from finishing on that map, I'm probably okay with that too.
Yeah. And just leave it alone. No more double push weeks. No more random. It just makes more of an irritating viewing experience, knowing damn well that a team in 2 minutes caps the point. I can just go watch something else. Is that what you want? Is that what the league wants? Because if so, you're on track to do that.
With like 80 to 90% accuracy, by the way, in prediction.
Yes.
Just because I know there's going to be that one dickhead that's like, oh, but this team made a comeback. Yeah, like one team out of fucking
correct. You are cherry
70
picking
different tries.
That one.
Wow. A Pelican did it one time. Wow, guys, fucking pack it up, fellas. Argument's done. Pelican did it one time. Wow, congrats.
And that's what should elevate that play more because of how difficult it is to traverse there, hit all those shots, get the resources. Everything had to align to make that play work. It's not some common occurrence like AVRL and Yiska have been talking about. This has to change.
It's like, it's so weird to see people go like, oh, it's assault, we're attacking point B, the attacking team 1 player died, the fight is over, you shouldn't even be using ultimates. Okay, that's frustrating. okay, let's suck for 6 minutes because you have absolutely no chance. Pog, new game mode, so good. Like, how is Assault not clearly the better option of the two, given those circumstances? You know.
At least the ending
Sure.
is like exciting on Assault. The ending, the
Yeah,
problem
it's
is
always
the ending.
exciting.
I'd much rather have like 5 minutes of bullshit, but then the ending be really good on Assault, versus what we get on Push, where like it seems even, and then the ending is complete bullshit.
Yeah.
And just pointless.
Yeah.
Like that nothing kills hype more than a Push ending. The only exciting Push endings are from close games, and people use the arguments like, yeah, but we've had good Push games. Yeah, but those are the games where neither team caps a checkpoint and neither team gets more than like fucking 50 or 60
Yeah.
meters.
Yep.
If we keep the entire Push map under 60 meters on both sides, it's a fucking amazing game.
Yeah.
Promise you.
Yep.
Anything beyond that, complete shit show. Utter shit show.
Yeah.
So,
It's
yeah,
also
don't get me started.
it's I get it's human nature to like be able to recall the nice events and quickly forget the like fucked up ones, but man,
Sure.
it's not helpful. It's not helpful in this
Confirmation
situation.
bias. Let's talk about APAC now. I think we're good for that. We
Yes.
have our little Push discussion there. More and more people are starting to become aware of Push.
Yeah.
There's still some mathematical stuff I could get into, but I'm not going to be bothered here because we're going to
Sure.
wrap up APAC and then I can use the bathroom.
Sure.
So, speaking about pissing, Hangzhou Spark. Jesus Christ, what happened here?
Oof, my guy. Oof.
What a transition, huh? What a transition.
Well done. Well
on
done.
fire.
Joe, you're a Joe guy. You're a Joe guy. You can talk
Yeah.
about Spark.
I wish I was. But
Yeah?
I'm not.
Joe,
What about that Alpha
represent
Yi?
the Joes.
Where that Alpha
You
Yi at?
represent the Joes.
Huh?
He was still good. He was still good.
fine.
He was okay.
He was fine, yeah. Was he first pick rookie of the year? Rookie?
I would say so.
However, here's the problem. They played him on Tracer a lot. And He's got a
Yes.
good Tracer, but it's not his signature hero.
No.
I'm surprised they put him on so much Tracer when his
Yeah.
Genji was clearly what carried.
Yeah.
Now, I think Spark will also due for market correction,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but man, did they get corrected fucking fast.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, it probably shouldn't surprise because
No.
when you look back at the Philly Spark series, not the one that got played in the bracket, but the one that got played during the season, the qualifier,
Yeah.
it seemed like Philly was probably the better team. They just, dropped more spaghetti. And Spark probably shouldn't have one,
Yes.
but they did because they were more clutch.
Yes.
So that being the case, probably not that surprising that Philly came back and won. Then you consider that Seoul were the best team that tournament and won the finals. Probably not a surprise that they fucking destroyed the Spark. So
yes.
on one hand, it's surprising that Spark looks so bad. On the other hand,
Maybe not so much.
I don't know. Maybe it's not that surprising. The team I'm most surprised about is Shanghai.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dude.
Did anyone else have any Spark conversation before we move on?
I wanted to pick your brain on that Midtown Spark Philly first match, I think, of APAC. Like, should that not just have been like a 3-0 Philly? I feel like they just botched
Midtown?
that rush
I
comp.
have it on Midtown.
Did they not play like a bunch of sim shit and just kind of like were really slow to like getting to the point and actually like trying to push any kind of advantage like compositionally?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the Bellisria Midtown.
Yeah, it
look,
felt
I don't
like
think
a
Fusion.
bit of a toss.
I don't think Fusion are practiced on Rhine at all.
No.
They're not practiced on Rhine, and they do weird things on Midtown when they could just be playing dive. Here's the problem. They played Fury against Chengdu, they lost. And I think that scared them, and they're like, okay, we can't do that again, so we're going to do something else.
Yeah.
And then they realize, oh, we can't play Winston into Zarya. Let's just play Rhine. Oh, we don't know how to play Rhine. Fuck. Is basically what happened.
Yeah. Their Midtown seemed pretty suspect because that was like, oh.
But if it
is
wasn't
this
for
how
that,
it's gonna be?
if that wasn't for that, they would have 3-0'd, yeah.
Yeah. I felt like it should have been a 3-0. That's
The
pretty much
next
all
team
my
on the
takeaways there.
Next team on the docket, third place team. Would you believe this team came third place? Shanghai Dragons. Now, Shanghai
hard
Dragons
to
have been on the up and up.
Yeah.
They've been on the major up and up. However, they were still dealing with, lockdown issues, internet issues. I know it sounds like excuses, but they're also kind of valid.
Mhm. 100%.
What a banger of a rivalry, by the way, Shanghai versus Seoul. Fuck me, those games were amazing.
Yes.
The game that I'm more surprised by is the Philly one. What the hell happened? They just got 0-3 by Philly.
Is that not just a form thing? Like I hate just leaning on that, but like that Shanghai, if you remove the nameplates, again, like this is like a foolproof way to like I think test your eye. If you remove the nameplates in the Shanghai Philly game and the Shanghai Seoul game, I don't know that you think the team playing in those is the same exact team, right? Like the common denominator here being Shanghai, they don't look the same. Is it? Did you kind of take the same thing from that, AVRL?
They looked way worse in the series than they did against Seoul.
Right.
Against Seoul, they looked like gods. And even when Seoul beat them, Shanghai still looked good.
Yeah.
But against Fusion, I was like, is this Spark again? Like, who the fuck am I watching?
Yeah.
The amount of mistakes they were making, the bullshit they were doing, I'm like, my God, the fucking fate feed on Eichenwalde. Oh, dude, like, what is going on? Like, they were just
breakdown of communication.
Everything that could go wrong. Everything that could go wrong went wrong. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying Philly didn't deserve to win and go to the finals, but, bro, Shanghai did not play their best game. Not even close. This was like not even 50% Shanghai from what I could tell, which is like, you know, sounds like I'm not giving Philly due credit, and I really am trying to, but you have to understand, Shanghai played like shit.
Yeah.
There was this one angry Philly fan, you know, which is, I think, their standard position, their default position is to be angry or sad. One of them was like, man, this cast is so negative. Why do they keep just talking? Why do they just keep? They're not talking about how Philly's winning. They just keep talking about how Shanghai's losing. I'm like, yeah, if you understood Overwatch a little bit better than you currently do, you would fucking see that Shanghai Dragons are playing like dog shit.
Yeah,
and that they are causing their own losses. If you understood that concept, you understand why I would be talking about Shanghai making mistakes.
I'm a big fan of like reframing things and rewording things, like coming from like card games. Let's reframe the Shanghai Philly game, right? Let's marquee this as the former world champions losing to a team of mostly rookies. Which do you think narratively dictates the pace? A, the former world champions that should be leading this game
Not
easily.
even that.
It's not,
or
but like
rookies.
just to the fans, or be the rookies. I don't know.
It's
maybe the chips.
The position I will always come from is, what do I think is actually happening? What is the truth? Right, I will do my best job to ascertain the truth and nothing else.
Right.
That was going to be my prime directive, and I will do that as much as I can. Ascertain the truth. Is the truth that Philly are just a much better team than Dragons? No, that's not the truth.
Yeah.
Is it the truth that Dragons are playing like fucking awful right now? Yeah, that is the truth. Therefore, I'm going to speak the truth. Sorry, that's what it's going to be.
Is there, okay, let's come in at it probabilistically, right? This is not the first 3-0 that Philly had against the Shanghai this season, right?
I believe it's 3 in a row now.
No.
It's 1 from the end of last season, 2 from this season. I believe Philly are currently sitting at 9-0 in map record versus Shanghai Dragons over the last 3 games.
Which is nuts,
That's
right?
So funny.
But is there, at least at this stage, is there an argument to be made that Philly does something that makes Shanghai play shit, even though it's nothing intentional, but it could be like play style differences, how they play into each other. Do you think that's something? This could be the case.
I think Carpe writes Shebol in the group chat in the all chat, and then he dips after map 1, and then for the rest of the series, Shanghai's angry and tilted. So there you go. That's the answer.
Push. Hits him with a quick little BM and dips.
Yeah. Shebol spelled with 2 S's, and that's it. That's Carpe's secret weapon. It's hard to say because Shanghai, look, the first series this year, obviously Shanghai traditionally have always played poorly in the opening game or 2. Understandable. But this one, they had no excuse because Shanghai just got off beating Seoul in one of the most hype best of 5s I've ever seen. So fucking cool how they beat the Seoul Dynasty, and Seoul were playing well. Both teams were playing really good.
Yeah.
The problem I have is that once you've displayed that you have the capability to play that well, you cannot come into the next match and just shit the bed the way you do.
Agreed. Yeah.
And maybe for some teams, like I think people will be like, well, what about Washington? They do that all the time. I'm like, well, that's different. But Shanghai's a world championship team. It's a much higher expectations. I expect a level of consistency and skill where once you display a level of skill, I expect that every single game that Shanghai play from then onwards is at least 80% of that level at all times.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's also, to a degree, I feel this way about Philly as well. They're also very on and off. and have been this entire stage seemingly, right? Like sometimes they just look like incredible. And Zest is like the best player on the server until MN3 logs on, and then he's the best player on the server. And it's like they do shit just by their sheer amount of skill that shouldn't work just because they're this good. And then they get into the next game, it's just underwhelming, and they get stomped, right? Like
also, by the way, this is really important. This is kind of talking about the meta matchups again in terms of Doom, Zarya, Ryan. I'm a little annoyed I didn't catch this at the time, and that's because I didn't wake up early enough to watch the Gladiators game before I had a cast on.
Right.
So I just didn't see it. But what happened is Shanghai almost, I don't know if they just copied Glads or whether Moon and Face are just on the same wavelength, but Shanghai did the exact same thing as Glads in their opening game by playing Rhine on all 3 of the submaps of Lijiang.
Yeah.
Just permanent Rhine.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what Glads did, and it worked. I think it was versus Dallas. The first time that Glads beat Dallas. And so Shanghai, like, Fate, here you go, buddy. You're going to do that. We're just going to copy the Glads.
Right.
And at the time, I was like, why the fuck would Dragons do this? What a stupid trade. Why would you run Ryan on all 3? And then I'm like, oh, okay, I see why Glads did it. Because versus Dallas, where Harbin's just going to lock the Zarya, it makes a lot of sense. But then you see how Shanghai gets dismantled by it. Fusion is sorry to credit to Jin. I actually said this in the cast. Credit to Jin for figuring this out as well. But having Bellisria coming on that map with the preparation to be like, as soon as you see Ryan, you're going to go Doom. Worked out so fucking good for the Fusion. So good.
Yeah.
And that's where, you know, that's another one of those games where if you just want to see where Doom's value is versus the Ryan, you can watch the Fusion versus Drangai versus Shanghai Dragons Lijiang map. All 3 of the sub maps, and you can see Bellisria going Doom and having crazy good value versus Fate.
Yeah.
So, there's that. So yeah, I think Dragons took some risks on their series, and then they threw a bunch as well, and then and then that's that. But you know, really hype for the rookies. I think it speaks well to the Philly rookies to be able to beat Shanghai twice like that.
That's impressive. This solidifies them as, like, I think, again, like, I'm gonna probably do a pretty piss poor job of like trying to like succinctly reiterate our power rankings, but like the feeling of Philly coming into this season was like a good team, middle of the pack, but it's tough to really compete with some of the top teams in APAC. But this performance in general, and I think this Kickoff Clash showing as a collective has proven, at least to me, that this is a team like fighting for the title most stages, right? Like this is a top tier caliber team.
I wouldn't doom Philly too hard. I think their fans doom pretty hard for this team, or any version of Philly, to be honest with you.
I mean, it is a very pretty narrative to be like, oh my god, the Kong line runaway has passed down their curse. Like it's Philly. They're the maidens of silver, the forever bridesmaids. Like it is very cool to like big them up.
I love that Philly made the finals just for that, because I remember saying like, yeah, of course Philly want to beat Dragons here. How else are they going to go to the finals and come second? Like, of course they will win here. And then they did, as predicted. So, but I still think this team has a lot of potential, a huge amount of potential. So I would hang on tight. This is one that you want to hodl on. You know, do not sell stonks. Hodl this one.
It's gonna mean so much when they actually get the win.
And either you know, your stonks will come up and rise in value, and you're going to be happy because Philly will be good and maybe win, or they'll crash and burn. And either way, I'll be entertained and happy. It doesn't really matter what the result is.
Yes.
So
have solace that
either
you
I'll clap,
either
I will clap for your successes and I'll be happy with you, or I will taste the sweet salty tears of the Philly fans. And either result is good for me. I'm okay with either result.
Can you imagine if they make every finals this year and they just come second? Like, what a story. What a beautiful story.
Honestly, for the memes, that would be pretty top tier.
Is that not incredible?
Like every single time they come second, the Philly second place meme on the iceberg gets lower and lower, and I think that's great.
We need that in a weird way. We need those big stories. We still talk about Shanghai 0-40, right? And it is fucking impressive that somebody does that. But like this is like something that's still positive, but like kind of touches that same like negative point. It's like
here is my only concern for Philly moving forward is I expect the Dragons to be leveling the fuck up after this. Because A, they're out of lockdown now. They just came out of lockdown. Shanghai's coming out of lockdown, which means both the quality of life for the players massively improves, but also they can get their better internet connection because internet's been an issue for the team. Both of those things will help them out immensely. So I am expecting a lot. Actually, a good storyline is the fact that Shanghai have been doing as well as they can under their current circumstances is pretty amazing. Should we move on to Seoul?
Now, this is the part of the podcast where I get absolutely obnoxious. I've been warming up. I've doing my jumping jacks for the last 2 minutes. This is where my love coincides. Not only do I love myself for having predicted Seoul, I also love myself for having believed in Prophet for 5 years. Dude, it's all about me.
Yeah. You're the talisman.
Jesus Christ, this Seoul team, man.
They look fantastic.
And Jesus Christ, this Prophet, man. Dude, like, we're 5 years in, this kid is still the best player in the world. How? Like, it's
kind of unheard of. It's kind of unheard of.
It is absolutely unheard of. It's like, this is like, in other esports, for instance, let's say Forrest in CS, right? Forrest is a player that would, at certain times in CS history, just be the best player. You know, 1.6 certainly had his highs there. Seicoe comes around, he looks like an absolute nutjob for a while, right? This is like this type of performance where, like, Prophet is just up there, man. Where, like, and you, Avril, you raised a point on Twitter that I think is absolutely true. And I think a lot of people were surprised when I said this.
Standard for my Twitter account, by the way. Continue.
But, like, I think in season 3 or something, or maybe season 4, we had like a discussion about Prophet and the GOAT argument and whatnot. And I said, like, you know what? Prophet actually doesn't have the best mechanics. Like, he first and foremost dominates by just having better game understanding, game sense, flexibility, and all of that. He's not like S-tier mechanics. It's all over now, man. This kid has been sitting on aim lab and he's pounding your favorite player into the ground. And he's still this smart. And he's still this flexible. This motherfucker played some fucking APAC Season 4 matchup there. Once again, on the Genji, on the Tracer, both absolute top tier. They don't make them like this anymore.
No.
They don't make DPS plays like this anymore.
It's all over at this point, man. Like, of course, like it's 1 quarter of the season, right? At the same time, when has this man ever fallen off other than like weird meta? Like, even if you like, in my take it from me, the Stan, who will say this man didn't have a great entrance to Echo. Okay,
yeah, I was about to say, yeah.
He sucked a fat one the first time it came down. Bro, this guy goes back into the lab, comes back, top 5 Echo.
Yep.
He's done it all over his career, man. And 5 years in, he finds another... like, he never was the deciding factor that made it not happen for his team. This is the difference between Prophet and Carpe, bro. If the series is tough, it's not... like, Carpe had pop-off performances in these series and then lost them. Prophet won't allow you if he's on that day. Like, you cannot be heavy enough for this player to not be able to carry you when he wants to. It's fucking nuts.
This, by the way, was my argument for leave last year, which is why I was so big on his MVP.
Right.
Candidacy.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm now big on Prophet, because he's doing that. Exactly. He's doing things that I deem are very important for advocating that you are the best player.
Yep. Like, did he deadlift the last map against Shanghai?
I can't remember.
It must have been pretty close, just from a feelings point of view.
It felt like it.
My God, man. And I don't know, like, I feel like the framing that I read on Reddit made a lot of sense. I felt like the argument was Prophet won the series against Shanghai, so Smurf could win the tournament against Philly, where probably, I mean, Profit still had a good series. Smurf just farmed Philly, seemingly, right? And I think we don't need to talk about which was the harder game and the more important game for them to finally overcome their demons. And we saw that in the emotional reaction because, my God, had this team, these teams always had like the most nuts like matchups. It's probably the most classical matchup in Overwatch League at this point. Like Shanghai Seoul is always going to be a banger, man. And to have
the El Clasico. It is the El Clasico at this point.
Like nothing else comes close in terms of the rivalry. And now that Seoul finally has a title to their name. You can now take them as a serious eye-level rival, especially because Shanghai doesn't seem to have it together, other than when they play against Seoul. And the thing is also, what people need to understand is, like, you know how impressive it is to win a map 5 against the Shanghai Dragons, bro? This team is not, like, map 5s for this team, their win rate is absolutely astronomical.
And Shanghai nearly won if it wasn't for Profit.
Yep.
He just welded. Bro, I mean, to be fair, like, it's probably a little bit reductive to just talk about Profit because, I mean, I felt Fitz had a great tournament, Smurf had a great tournament.
They all did. Everyone on Seoul had a great tournament, technically speaking, yes.
Creative, certainly. Like, I was like, is Creative a top tier flex support? No, he is.
When you see him sleep nano blading, who are you? You're like, all right, this guy's the kid. This guy's the kid.
Yeah, it's a real deal.
By the way, consider this. 3 years ago, when Ryujay Hong did that, we'd all jaws to the floor. Like, oh my God, how was that possible? That's like the fucking insect kick moment in League of Legends. Like, what the fuck was that? That's the best thing I've ever seen in my life. Now, it's like standard. Now, every single nanoblade is like, yo, if this Ana doesn't sleep the Genji, I think this Ana's bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, now it's so standard.
Yeah. But yeah, Creative.
My point is, but it's still hard to do it. But it's still so hard to do that if you are doing it consistently, you're fucking insane.
It's impressive.
Yeah. No, Creative makes me not miss Jjonak. Right?
Good take.
And then I don't want to. I think, like, for a rookie performance, Vindame had also a really good one. I think there's something to be said about consistency throughout the tournament. I think that most people would say that. I didn't. No, actually, I saw a lot of people say he's like the best main support in APAC or something. I'm not sure if that's true. Even though I will say Lee Jae-gon is up to his old feedy self, seemingly. So maybe, but what a team they have together. And I think, like, in essence, it's just good to see that Profit finally has some help again, man.
Yeah.
Right, he's got a team around him.
Yeah,
he certainly does.
They gave him the 2-time back-to-back champion and a tank player as well. Like, holy shit, Toby, well done, well fucking done, Toby, for that. What an insane pickup in the off season.
Yep.
Krusty is sitting there like, fuck, super fucked us a little bit here. We probably could have kept Smurf, but we didn't know that Super was going to retire. Damn, if only Krusty had read that Halo report, I must, you know what I'm saying? No, but seriously, like, you know, they banked on Super, and they could have gotten Kaluj as well. That's fine, but you only want one main tank. You're not going to keep both Super and Smurf, so they made their choice. But yeah, I mean, in a way, you can definitely say Shock lets Smurf go, and Seoul could not be happier to get Smurf.
No,
because the guy was my MVP. I was heavily advocating for Smurf MVP for the finals. We got Profit again, which I can't. I don't hate it. But I think Smurf was the player of the grand finals.
Yeah.
However short it was, Smurf like fucking dominated.
Yeah.
I think last map he was deathless until the last 2 minutes or something like that.
Yeah,
and then even then he finished the entire New Queen Street map with 1 death.
Yeah, that's nuts. That New Queen Street was rough to watch. Like, I was sad. I was like kind of excited to go like, oh yeah, Philly is like forever silver, blah, 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 blah. And then I reminded myself that you have to end on push, and it was an absolute
It's impossible to cast. It's impossible to cast when you see Seoul get like 100 meters and there's still like 2 minutes left. You're like, what can you say?
Yeah, there's
like,
nothing to say.
pack it up. Like it's actually done, but there's like nothing you can say anymore.
Yeah. I will.
I'll ask.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you two this, because this was something that I think dominated the season 1 narrative, was this search for a specific type of player. And I wonder if you two believe we may have found him, right? Right?
Oh yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
You know the one I'm talking about. Season 1 from the mainstream non-endemic esports media that kind of had a clue was, who is Overwatch League's faker? Is it Jjonak? Let's give him an interview, right? We're 5 years in. The kid barely misses a beat. Have we not found our faker?
Ironically, looking for your faker in the first year is always deemed to be a complete failure.
Yeah.
When faker didn't arrive until 3 years in anyway.
Yeah.
So looking for him in year number 1 is pointless. But yeah, because we were talking about, like, I think Platcho was talking about as well. It's like, it could proper be the, have we finally got the faker of Overwatch? Proper's here now. And then I responded to Yiska, was like, we've spent so long looking for faker, we didn't even realize he was here the whole time.
Yeah.
He's been here the whole fucking time. We just didn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we did though, and that's like the annoying part to a degree. And like I can link you all the, like, I had like a GOAT discussion article, like after season 4, late season 4 or something. It annoys me that we always need these moments in time in order to acknowledge people's greatness when you just have to look at the data and the facts that we have presented. And there are some like real, like, I struggle for words. Like, it's really sad how Prophet's career for the most part has been treated, it feels like to me. Because once again, and I will never let this die, you can, like, I mean, drop dead as far as I care, but I will never not be mad at people giving 0 MVP nominations to Prophet in season 1, while people like Agility's got 3. I'm sorry. That was always bullshit. He was definitely a better player than Birdring across the entire season. Birdring got more nominations. Grieve got more nominations. That's an absolute, like, bullshit argument.
Sham. Yeah.
Last year, I don't think there was there was an argument to, like, he was not as good as Lip in Leaf. So I didn't hate that. But, like, the lack of personal accolades other than MVP titles in matches or grand finals is a serious blemish in how we award talent in this scene. Because, like, if I tell you our greatest player of all time has 0 MVP nominations in the league, that might confuse you, right? If I tell you our greatest player of all time has 5 nominations total over 5 years in the Overwatch League, 4 years in the Overwatch League for MVP title at all, you're looking at me weird. At the same time, that is all true. It's all true, and I feel like we shouldn't need these moments in time where he demonstrates once again that he's sick, because he always is. Just not, like, maybe the stakes of the match aren't as high, or the role that he has to play in order to accommodate his teammates isn't as flashy. But Prophet is always like this, man.
He's just been held back by poor teams that have surrounded him. London season 2, Seoul season 3, Seoul season 4. Even though Seoul went to the finals, the rest of the season wasn't good, right? Season 4, I mean, Seoul were coming up and looking pretty decent, but they had to battle Philadelphia for fucking 3rd place while Chengdu and Shanghai slammed everybody. So, yeah, I mean, Seoul, Prophet's just been held back. But on an individual level, I think that's the thing. It's like, this game is difficult for people to assess what is impressive and what is not, especially definitely on an individual level. And a lot of people, a lot of fans will use results to quantify things. And I can't blame them, because that's the most easily quantifiable thing.
Sure.
That's why whenever you talk about GOAT discussions, everyone looks at titles first. That's the first thing to look at.
Yeah.
They're not looking at other types of performances, how important this player has been to a particular team, how they performed in terms of their personal output over the years or over different seasons and different metas. When you look at it from a holistic approach, Prophet is the clear GOAT. There simply is no one else in my mind. So,
yeah.
But you have you have to be looking at everyone, because otherwise you end up arguing with people who are like, well, this person or that person has won this and won that, and Profit has won less than that. It's like, yeah, and Profit's been on worse fucking teams and still holding up. Like that actually should help Profit, you know, in various ways. But it's just Overwatch is just one of those games, man, where you know it's so easy to underrate people and so easy to overrate people as well.
Oh, for sure.
But Prophet is by far the most underrated, slept on, criminally robbed player of all time. He never had a role star before. Unbelievable that he's never had a
that
role
is
star.
also. I forgot about that. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's
It's
insane.
egregious, is what it is.
Yeah.
It's fucking egregious.
Yeah. And to be fair, World Star, when did it come in? Season 3? Did we start World Stars? No, it's season 2
I
actually,
remember.
because I remember we gave one to
yeah.
DPS players for
Gave
one
Corey.
stage. Corey.
Season stage 4, baby. He played a mean Hanzo. Is Cassidy kinda lit? Give him the award.
What about that Zarya
lad
though?
did it. That lad. Don't pay attention to that. Don't worry about that. Don't you worry. Prophet also did kind of pound on Zarya. Just saying.
Yeah.
And that was probably his worst season. That was probably his worst season as well, unless you count season 3. Season 3 is a weird one because he also kind of popped off towards the end in playoffs.
Yeah.
I think season 3 is when the real playoffs Prophet thing kind of started, right? Am I wrong? Or is that
Yeah.
also from season 1? Because London popped off in playoffs. I don't know.
That doesn't even make sense to me either.
But yeah, like I think by the time we got to the finals, after seeing a map, I was like, okay, this is probably going to be quite one-sided, and it doesn't surprise me. But I'm so fucking happy for Seoul, just in the fact that they're finally proving it. I think you need this level of dominance as well. I'm both surprised and also pleased that both regions had 4-0 finals, because I think the team that won really proved why they deserve to win in the most insane way possible, by diffing the other team as hard as possible, and they certainly did do that. Would you guys agree? I have a take that I think the Seoul versus Shanghai lower bracket final was the best match of the entire Kickoff Clash across both regions.
Yes.
Oh yeah, it's not close.
Yeah.
It's by far.
Yep.
I
agree.
Far and a long way. If you
'Cause that's the thing.
enjoyed, go ahead.
I might be disappointed that the finals was a 4-0, but
Sure.
in reality, I think I'm okay with that, because I think the real finals was the Seoul Dragons, and I got to cast that anyway, and so I felt like I got a finals anyway, you know. So I'm not disappointed personally. I think we got our finals. I think we got the Seoul Dragons was so good, like that might as well be a finals. It was that level of play. Both teams at maximum, you know, full throttle, redlining, and clutch after clutch, play after play. Both teams went hardcore, and Seoul clutched it out. So credit to them.
Yeah, it was definitely the highlight. If you haven't seen it, I know obviously NA fans, it's hard to catch those live, but definitely go check the VOD. It's worth your time, 100%. Some obviously fantastic calls, and yeah, that emotional moment.
Yeah.
Prophet talked about it after the game. Like, it's been so long since they've been able to get it over the line versus Shanghai, and to do so, like at the you talk about redlining. This kid was blowing gaskets trying to get this over the line. Like, and that's not like because Seoul was dragging him behind. He was just playing out of his fucking head casket. Like, this kid was popping off. It was nuts. It was like literally one of like vintage Prophet. Vintage Apex Season 4. I'm a swap Genji because I played it once and I think I'm cracked at it and I'm feeling myself and I'm feeling my flow. And the kid looks nuts. The kid's nuts. I don't know. I'm over this. Oh, we're looking for Faker. Who's our GOAT? It's clear. It's clear. It's been clear.
It's also the fact is now the last competitors for longevity, like for instance Void, and to a degree fake Flutter, they are dropping like flies, man. Like, they definitely have noticeable performance decreases, have they not? Or they're not, they're benched, you know? Like, playtime has to be evaluated in the equation. Prophet, I believe Prophet is the record holder for most matches played, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, did he not hit 600?
Jjonak is, I think.
Still?
I don't know if still, but the thing is, Jjonak only retired for the season, right? He played every other season, and he's never not been a starter. All 4 seasons he's played.
Right. Yeah, it might be maps played then, because I don't think Prophet set out too many matches, but maps for sure.
I'm pretty sure Jjonak has a 100% playtime for maps.
Yeah, and then
He's
of
never
course
missed a map.
season 1 way.
He's never been benched. Yeah.
I believe that official Owl Stats Twitter, I think he was the first player to hit 600 maps, and then I think, was it last season or 2 seasons ago, he hit 10K final blows.
And just by the way, and this is crazy now. This is an interesting
Eric
thought
has
experiment. Probably the last topic, by the way. We'll make this one quick. Is
It's Prophet, yeah.
would Seoul be even better if Jjonak was here? Because Creative is playing out of his mind, but Jjonak was still really good on NYXL last year.
Yeah,
And I still think Jjonak would have been a fucking monster this meta as well.
easily.
So would if you had Smurf, Prophet, and Jjonak on the same team, I mean, at that point, you just give the season's over, right? Like, is there any more to say, or like what?
I think if I had if like ideal scenarios, I think you have Creative and Jjonak, which, correct me if I'm wrong, in the preseason that may have.
I'm just saying if who'd be
either
starting,
or.
right?
Okay.
If Jjonak is here, he'd be starting. And
I think
theory,
Creative is
starting, so.
agreed. I do think Jjonak would still be starting. I think Creative has been fairly underrated. I think he has been genuinely a top tier flex support in the region, even globally. But Jjonak is kind of built a little differently. Like, is a playmaker, can have some clutch performances, has a signature pick that like not too many people can like measure him on. Yeah, Jjonak is a little hard to measure against.
This team still has fucking Stalker on the bench.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Just pull that one whenever you feel like it. I know he's had one map and it wasn't great, but that's when Seoul was figuring shit out and Fitz was playing Sombra. So we'll forget about the early games. I mean, now that we've settled down a little bit and Dragons have Dynasty have realized what they're supposed to be playing, you know, we're past that.
Also, just hypothetically, tell me, like, this season, just imagine this season, Gesture gets another contract. Tell me Prophet wouldn't have been put on Zarya duty. Looked like pretty good, but not, you know, like stellar, because, or actually like a top performer on Zarya, not the best, but once again would have been forced off his role. The Dynasty would have flexed around that. Stalker, Fitz play the entire time, and then Dynasty never goes anywhere. And then everyone's like, oh, is he really the good, blah, 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 blah. That's the multiverse we're living in, right?
By his team again. He gets held back by the team / Gesture. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Now he has
Thankfully,
Smurf.
we're not in that multiverse.
Yeah. Smurf also has the Zarya, so now finally, Jesus Christ, he doesn't... Like, now Prof is actually able to focus on his picks and, like, hone the mechanics and whatnot, and doesn't have to flex around people and spend his time in solo queue grinding like fucking Brig.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Last question before we head out. Not a full topic, so I didn't technically lie. Really quickly, minimal explanation. We're not going to do a power ranking, but who do you have in a best of 7 in Kickoff Clash meta? Glads versus Seoul, hypothetically.
Okay.
That's tough.
I think it's Seoul. I think it has to be Seoul. But man, I would probably cry seeing Kevster play against Prophet right about now.
That'd be a good one. That's the dream mid-season final on land. Woo!
Sheesh.
That brings heat.
Reiner against Smurf.
Strangely, I lean Glads because I think their roster depth helps them more. I want to pick Seoul because I think Seoul's peaks are higher. For example, I think Smurf's a better tank player than Reiner. Still think Reiner's good, but I think Smurf's a better tank player than Reiner. Fuck, this sounds crazy, but I think Vindame is at least as good as Funny Astro.
Oh.
Legitimately, I think Vindame has been a monster. An actual fucking monster. And then Prophet, I think, is the best player on both teams. No takebacks. I know all the NA fans will be salty that I said Prophet and not Kevster, but it's just my opinion.
What about Patty against Fitz? Yeah, that's a hard one.
It's hard because I don't think it's necessarily like a fair comparison in a vacuum because while Seoul will only, I shouldn't say only, will likely only play Fitz, Glads will play Ons.
Yeah, I think Ons outperforms in a sniper capacity. But otherwise,
you look at a lot of those escort like metagames, Glads look difficult to handle.
I think Glads can do some really funky stuff that puts Seoul in a weird position. For example, the Sigma double sniper, double flick support with skewed and shoot at the same time is something that Seoul just can't do.
Yeah.
And Seoul would have to figure out a way around that rather than just beat it.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying, like, I think flexibility-wise, there's just certain things that Glads can do that Seoul can't. But I think in a general game, when we don't talk about substitutions as much, Smurf is, in my opinion, easily way more flexible than Reiner and also just a better player than Reiner. And then, you know, I feel like that shouldn't be a hot take. Smurf's a fucking 2-time champion. Reiner's a rookie. Come on, guys. You don't, No one should be upset about that comment. That's a fucking based as fuck comment.
It's a gimme. Yeah.
Cold. That's an ice cold 0-degree comment. Okay? Smurf is better than Reiner. Literal fucking 2-time champion. Shut up. Reiner might be rookie of the year candidate, but don't give me that shit, all right?
Have you seen
Slow
his
the
back
fuck
shape,
down.
though?
Yep.
Huh?
Have you seen Reiner's back shape, though?
Shut up.
That's 0.75
your Redgar scale.
Is what?
His back shape, his rounded back.
Yiska had a tweet kind of memeing on Reiner for his hunch, his posture being pretty poor, and he tried to.
It's just a game of hunch.
It is gamer back, but he's now measuring it based on a professional Valorant player who has comically bad posture called Redgar.
Right.
And to be fair, that was suggested by a Discord member, but
yeah, it was.
I looked at the back and Reiner replied saying like 20 frames later, I had my head in my hands just because I was so bored. And I think that was it the Atlanta series? I'm not sure.
Probably.
Man, that
just to be clear, I'm fighting the fans who are like nutting way too hard over Reiner rather than Reiner himself. I think Reiner's great.
Yeah.
Joe, where did you land in this matchup?
In the Glads Seoul head to head, it is tough. It is tough. I see a lot of like value from Glad's depth, like you said. I don't know that they drop us. Like, I think if you play a best of 100 and you just look at Escort, I really wonder if Glads wins a lot of those for a lot of those same reasons that you mentioned, like the double sniper, the double flex. Like, they have a very different look to those Escort maps than Seoul can kind of, you know, I do wonder there. Control feels very tight. I think push feels tight. But in terms of like performance and style, as it stands now, I don't know that Glad's Rhine comp really matters, right? Like, yes, it mattered in the Dallas, like then that triangle and that rock, paper, scissors. It was very valuable in the Dallas head to head, but I don't know that Seoul needs it. I think this is a dive mirror match. And when you look at who sits across the table from you, you look at Smurf, you look at Prophet, Creative has been fantastic. It's tough to argue against Seoul right here.
I guarantee you it is a dive mirror match as well. Why? Yeah. Because they want to play Reiner, and they would rather play Reiner than Space. The only way it's not a dive mirror is if Space plays. And if Reiner decides to go Rhine, they will get out-dived. They're just going to get dived. Like, Prophet's going to fucking farm your backline if you decide to do that. So, yeah. And here's the other problem is, like, I think there's a lot of people overrating Rhine. Right, not the player, well, they're definitely the player, but also the comp, the Rhine comp. People are hard overrating it because they're leaning into the Charty meme and they're leaning into Atlanta losing to London and Glad's using Ryan versus Atlanta as well. And it's like, guys, Ryan is not the fucking meta. Ryan is the third best hero in the Zarya Winston Ryan triangle.
Yeah.
But because he's consistently good versus Zarya, he has a place. That's the only thing he does.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't for his matchup versus Zarya, Ryan would not be fucking relevant.
Mm-hmm. You get fucking abused like on every other.
Don't use London's wins versus other mediocre teams as evidence that Ryan is good. Don't go there. So,
agreed. Team should know how to beat against this. This has been this archetype has been in the game since beta, so you should know better.
Anyway, 2:38. We are done. We'll come back next week for the preview.
Yeah.
As we head back into the season, APAC is delayed by a week.
Yep,
is what it is. And lots to look forward to for the mid-season madness. We might talk about the patch as well. As will there be more beta news by the next recording? There should be. I think it's after the beta news thing, isn't it?
No, I think it's literally that Thursday. No.
The day
Yeah,
after.
the day
Yeah.
after.
The day
wow.
after, but we will have some meta information because, as far as I'm aware, the new patch is live on
Correct.
the tournament realm since Monday.
We'll talk about something related to the beta next week.
Yes.
But anyway, thanks for hanging out, fellas. 238. Popping out. See ya.
All right.